Chapter 32-34. The great emperor's sudden appearance caused the little eunuchs guarding the eastern palace to be thrown into chaos. Just as they were about to pass the message, Mo Lusheng waved at them impatiently and strode in with his hands behind his back. However, the moment he walked in, he saw a heart-wrenching scene. Prince Mo was hugging his little wife. Lady Xiao Xiao was hanging onto his body. Public morals were degenerating day by day. It was an eyesore in broad daylight. When Mo Lusheng strode in, the young couple turned to look at him, their gazes revealing a strange look. "Your father is here." Lord Siqiao jumped down from his body and landed on the ground, glancing at the great emperor. Prince Mo felt that his father was a little annoying. Didn't he just leave the imperial study? Why did he follow him here again? Couldn't he just let him and his wife get along well? The great emperor saw that his son's face was dark, as if he didn't want to see him. He snorted with his hands behind his back. "What's with that expression? You don't want to see your father?" Prince Mo muttered softly. "What did you say?" Mo Lusheng turned to glare at his son. Prince Mo stepped forward and bowed. "Your son said, you came at the right time. My wife and I were just about to eat. Since you're here, let's eat together." This troublemaker of a son, he finally said something reasonable. Mo Lusheng nodded in satisfaction. "Pass the meal." Prince Mo and Sir Jojo looked at each other, then walked hand in hand to the side hall's dining hall. Today, His Majesty was eating in the Eastern Palace. The little eunuchs and palace maids below were especially busy. The dishes flowed in like water. When the three of them entered, the dishes had already been placed on the table. Mo Lusheng looked at the little couple holding hands from start to finish and felt that it was a little painful to the eyes. He coughed and said, "How was your experience in the mystic realm? Did you encounter any danger?" Prince Mo shook his head. "It felt pretty good." Mo Lusheng put down his chopsticks and secretly twitched the corner of his mouth, cough. "But why did we hear that your trip this time is full of danger?" Mo Lusheng looked at his son and asked, "Did you encounter danger all the way from Du Chunjiang to Red River Canyon? Is there anything wrong? You can see that we're still in high spirits, and we're not missing any limbs. You can tell that we're fine." Prince Mo secretly rolled his eyes and then said, "But father, my wife has suffered a lot along the way. Do you want to open a storehouse or something to nourish her body?" Mo Lusheng, how dare you say that? As a father, he was more tired than anyone else. Just because the crown prince was squandering, he had to follow behind and pay the bills. Which crown prince would be like him? Acting recklessly and in a complete mess. The more Mo Lusheng thought about it, the more he was about to blow his beard and glare. The little stoic bluntly glared back at the emperor and said crisply, "You're not allowed to glare at Jojo's lotus." Mo Lusheng, Mo Yen was overjoyed. He leaned closer to his wife and picked up a piece of fish for her. "Jojo, eat." Mo Lusheng felt even more stifled. This son treated his wife 100 times better than his father. "We encountered Heavenly Fate's people at Red River Canyon." Sir Jojo glanced at Mo Lusheng and said, "It looks like Heavenly Fate is about to take action. You have to make preparations as soon as possible." Prince Mo nodded repeatedly on the side, completely agreeing with his wife's words. "Although we eliminated the temple's forces, Heavenly Fate, this underground organization, has probably developed for several hundred years." Chapter 32-35. Its hidden forces are very intricate, and many of them aren't easy to unearth, Prince Mo said seriously. "Have you considered what I said to father this afternoon?" Mo Lusheng's expression also became slightly more serious. "The transfer orders have already been issued. From tomorrow onwards, all the fortifications will be stepped up." Mo Lusheng paused before asking, "Do you think this place will be like Seekong Planet in the lower star domain, becoming chaotic because of the sudden outbreak of zombies?" Mo Lien nodded. "This will happen sooner or later. No matter what, we have to make preparations early. Watchtowers must be set up in all the cities, and people must be stationed day and night. Once a flying beast of unknown origin appears, it must be shot down immediately. Mo Lian glanced at Mo Lusheng and said, when the zombies on Seacombe planet broke out, they relied on nightcaw birds to spread the disease. Mo Lusheng nodded with a serious expression, indicating that he had already taken the Crown Prince's words to heart. Hubby. Sir Jojo picked up a piece of meat for her. The food is cold. Mo Lian glanced at her with a smile, then patted her little head. And, let's talk after eating. Because of his son's words, Mo Liusheng's mood was a bit heavy, so he was a bit absent-minded while eating. But when he took the first bite of rice, he returned to his senses and looked down at the white jade porcelain bowl in his hands with slight surprise. The rice grains inside were plump and sparkling, and the chubby appearance was adorable. Could this be the holy rice that is all the rage in the capital now? He had heard of the special product that Kaidai Veranda fought over. Lady Jojo held her bowl of rice and nodded her small head. Mo Lusheng took 2 more bites, feeling a bit surprised, but he didn't show it on his face. We heard that the Kaidai Veranda you manage is now full of customers every day, and you still need to make reservations early to be able to get a seat. Recently, your holy rice has been auctioned off for 180,000 yuan per bowl. When the emperor thought of this, he felt that his wife must be filthy rich. He was already so rich, but this shameless couple still came to scam him often. Lady Qiao Qiao expressionlessly looked at the great emperor. The bowl in your hand is a special offering among special offerings. It's the best holy rice. I won't sell it if it's not at least 500,000 yuan per bowl. The little stoic pursed her lips. The holy rice in the emperor's hands was not only watered with holy water, but it was also grown with the power of holy wood and cooked with holy fire. Regardless of whether it was the texture or the power contained within, it was incomparable to the ones sold outside. The great emperor went from small bites to big bites. Then, he gracefully put down his bowl and chopsticks and called out, "Hu De Quan." Eunuch Hu quickly ran in from outside and bowed to them with a smile. "Your Majesty, do you have any orders? Pack a bag of holy rice and bring it back. Have the small kitchen cook a bowl for me every day." Eunuch Hu looked dumbfoundedly at the little crown princess who was expressionless. Crown Prince Mo blinked before abruptly saying, "Then you have to give my wife the right to enter and exit the precious herb garden." This little brat really wasn't someone who could take a loss. Mo Lusheng thought, and then he rolled his eyes. That won't do. There are so many good things in the herb garden. What if they are accidentally destroyed by an outsider? Mo Lian harumphed. My wife is an earth-grade alchemist. She didn't expect to be so busy today and was asked to work overtime. Chapter 32-36. That's right, don't be arrogant and complacent just because of a little achievement. In our divine continent, mid-level alchemists are everywhere, and even high-level alchemists aren't few. Don't think that just because you can provide a bloodshed vermilion fruit, you've already entered the ranks of alchemists. The path of alchemy is broad and profound, there are many things to learn. Wait a minute. Mo Liusheng's voice paused slightly, and he suddenly glanced sideways at his son, raising his voice slightly. What did you just say? Mo Lian rolled her eyes in annoyance. I said, my wife is an earth level pill master. Now you heard it clearly, right? Mo Lian glanced at her father with a smile that wasn't a smile. This guy's mind was wandering, and he didn't even hear it clearly, yet he was admonishing them with certainty. Mo Liusheng's expression at this time was very surprised. Sure enough, he seemed to come back to his senses all of a sudden, staring at Arbor with wide eyes for a while before saying, "You know how to make earth-level pills?" Arbor glanced at him and nodded. Sort of. Now, she could sometimes produce heaven-level pills with a small probability, and last time, she even produced a black-veined earth-level pill. Her alchemist realm seemed to be developing in the direction of higher quality. Mo Liusheng's gaze was somewhat complicated, and he looked at her deeply. He wouldn't have noticed if he didn't look, but with this look, Mo Liusheng couldn't help but frown slightly, and he said with some surprise, "You? Did your cultivation level increase again?" Arbor threw him a "you just realized" look, nodded calmly, and said in a calm tone, "It's just so, now I can barely be considered a beginner level 13 level great spiritualist." The Emperor actually felt somewhat speechless, and his gaze seemed to be looking at an otherworldly weirdo, staring blankly at Arbor for a good while. Why did he look like an idiot? Arbor's little eyes glanced at the Emperor, and she couldn't help but say, "Although my realm didn't increase much, my divine sense increased a lot. Now it's already a 4th level divine sense." Mo Liusheng, why did he keep feeling stifled? And what the hell was with this inexplicable huge blow? This advancement was due to the fact that the Sun-Moon Mystery Realm had fused into her galaxy. Even the little tree had benefited greatly. Previously, after the Sun-Moon Mystery Realm had fused into the star field, all kinds of things had happened one after another. She hadn't had enough time to flee for her life, so naturally, there hadn't been time for her to go into seclusion to advance. She suppressed her realm and waited until she returned to the academy before she calmed down and advanced a level. Now, her cultivation had successfully stepped into the realm of level 13 Great Spiritual Master. As for the little tree, it had already entered the realm of middle growth stage. Seeing the Emperor's shocked expression, the little stoic pursed her small lips. What was there to be surprised about? Before you went to the Royal Academy, you were only a level 10 Great Spirit Master. Mo Liusheng restrained himself, but in the end, he still couldn't help but open his mouth. At that time, she had removed the aura-concealing talisman in the study room. He had seen it with his own eyes, hadn't he? But now, it had only been a little over a month, and this little guy had actually leaped into the realm of a 13th rank Great Spirit Master in one go. Moreover, with Mo Liusheng's eyesight, he could naturally tell that this little brat's cultivation did not seem to be fake. It was extremely stable. This little guy was really quite amazing. Mo Liusheng glanced at the little girl again, inwardly thinking, this kind of talent is completely not inferior to the Pangu clan's Princess Jing. Chapter 32-37. Cough. The Emperor suddenly felt that his expression was a bit like an idiot's, so he quickly adjusted his expression and put on a solemn face. "You've improved a lot recently, but you have to maintain it." "That's right, since you're an Earth-grade alchemist, then have you gone to the pill house to test your grade?" "I haven't." The little stoic recalled Fairy Huanghe's words and couldn't help but sigh ruefully. She heard that with the alchemist certification issued by the pill house, you could get a discount at any medicinal herb shop in the 3 provinces. Hence, the Emperor fumed and glared. "You haven't even tested it, so how can you boast that you're an Earth-grade alchemist?" This Earth-grade alchemist title wasn't a boast. Someone who can steadily refine 100 Earth-grade pills in one go isn't an Earth-grade alchemist. The Emperor twitched his mouth and nodded indifferently. "Then don't be arrogant and continue to work hard. There are plenty of young alchemists who are better than you in this world." When Prince Mo heard this, he was immediately unconvinced. "Which girl of the same age in this world can be better than my Jojo?" Mo Liusheng glared at his son. "There's always someone better. There's still a 28-year-old divine alchemist in this world." When Mo Liusheng mentioned this person, he couldn't help but sigh ruefully. Unfortunately, this expert's whereabouts are erratic. It's very difficult to find her. Can your wife reach the divine alchemist realm when she's 28? The Emperor shook his head and couldn't help but sigh. It'd be great if she could become a divine alchemist. Mo Lian was unhappy when he heard this. His little wife was clearly more outstanding than anyone else, so why did she seem so unsightly in his father's mouth? He simply didn't know what was good for him. Mo Lian was just about to rebuke his father when Arbor grabbed him. In truth, there were many things that didn't need to be argued with. When her strength reached that level, that would be the best way to slap their faces. In any case, it wasn't the Emperor's first time being slapped in the face, so he didn't mind the pain. Arbor pursed her lips, indicating for Prince Mo to pay attention to the Emperor's current expression. Her hopeful expression softened his chiseled, handsome face. "You're looking for that divine great alchemist?" Mo Lien raised her eyebrows. A 28-year-old divine grade alchemist was indeed quite outstanding, but Mo Lien believed that his little wife would definitely be able to reach the realm of a divine grade alchemist in less than 10 years. "Have you heard of the soul-returning pill?" the Emperor suddenly asked, his gaze landing on the little stoic. The little crown princess glanced at him. "A saint-grade pill that reverses yin and yang. To make them, you need divine phoenix wood, Sangzhou snowfield flower, and underworld remote ghost grass. Also, add a saint-grade spirit fruit, the bloodshed vermilion fruit." Mo Lusheng nodded his head excitedly. Speaking of the bloodshed vermilion fruit, she had casually taken one out and given it to him when he was testing the young crown princess. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't excited at that time, but the great emperor was used to pretending. Even if he was overwhelmed with emotions, no one would be able to tell. "Do you know how to make it?" Mo Liusheng's eyes were faintly suppressed with anticipation. "Only a saint-grade alchemist can make this pill," the little stoic said indifferently. "Although a divine-grade alchemist can also make it, the success rate is extremely low. It wasn't easy to gather the materials for rare treasures like divine phoenix wood, remote ghost grass, and snowfield divine flower. How could a person with a low success rate carelessly make a pill like this?" Chapter 32-38. Mo Lu Sheng's expression changed slightly, and after a long silence, he asked, "How low is the success rate of a god-grade pill refiner?" "About 10%. Arbor said indifferently. The moment she said that, Mo Lu Sheng's expression turned even uglier. He let out a long sigh, as if he had been hit so hard that he seemed to have lost his soul. Arbor glanced at him. "You can wait for that talented god-grade pill refiner to advance to a saint-grade pill refiner, and then give her the ingredients to refine. In this way, even if there is a possibility of failure, the success rate can be more than 60%. Mo Lucian glanced at her, moved his lips, and finally sighed faintly. Mo Lien held her little hand. "In the past 1,000 years, there hasn't been a saint-grade pill refiner in the divine continent." "Wait? Wait until when?" "This god-grade pill refiner might not be able to advance to a saint-grade pill refiner in her lifetime." Arbor raised her delicate brows, and glanced at the emperor who had a hint of melancholy in his eyes. "Then wait for me," she suddenly said. "When I grow up, I'll help Lien's mother refine the soul-returning pill. 5 years is enough." Mo Lusheng looked at her as if he was looking at a weirdo for a long time, then silently got up, turned his head, and shouted at Hu Dequan, who was standing at the side like a statue, "What are you standing there for? Take the sacred rice and return to the palace." Prince Mo twitched his mouth, and hurriedly said, "The entry and exit token for the herb garden." A bolt of lightning flashed before his eyes, and Mo Lien reached out to grab that herb garden token, and stuffed it into his little wife's hands. Arbor glanced at the emperor's back as he left in a huff, blinked, and asked, "What's wrong with him?" "Just now, he left halfway." Lord Jojo tilted her head in thought, and asked her husband with a serious face, "Does your father not believe me?" She said that she could become a saint-grade pill refiner in 5 years, and it wasn't a joke. She was someone who had 12 times the flow of time, and saying 5 years was to take care of the emperor's mood, and purposely said long. She didn't expect that when she said 5 years, he didn't believe her. What an inexplicable person. Mo Lien looked at his wife's conflicted expression and almost laughed out loud. He nodded and said, "It's okay. We'll use the truth to slap him in the face in 2 years." Jojo thought about it and nodded. Then, he walked to his side and reached out to touch his face. Don't be sad. I will cure your mother. Mo Lian's eyes flickered and seemed to overflow with tenderness. She reached out to hold the little fellow's waist and kissed her gently on the cheek. I know. When your old man is happy, bring me over to have a look, Lady Qiao Qiao said expressionlessly. All right. Don't worry, a small soul-returning pill won't be a problem for your master Jojo, the little fellow said with a serious look on his serious face. Mo Lian picked her up and said with a smile, I know. I know everything. There were many things that didn't need to be said. Everything was in tacit agreement. Jojo rubbed her little head against his face. Come back early tomorrow afternoon. I want to eat sweet osmanthus and lotus root, you can make it. Mo Lian smiled and nodded. Wife, if there's anything else you want to eat, just tell your husband. Your Highness, Your Highness. Hurried footsteps came from outside. Chapter 32-39. Eunuch Chen ran in with small steps and bowed while panting. Your Highness, something happened at Yongren Palace. Yongren Palace was the Empress Dowager's bedchamber, what could happen? Mo Lian subconsciously raised his brows. Eunuch Chen continued, His Majesty invites your Highness over. Mo Lian was a little unhappy. So many things happened as soon as he returned to the palace. Why did he look for him, the Crown Prince, when something happened at Yongren Palace? He wasn't familiar with the old lady, so he didn't know why his father called him over. However, Arbor tugged at his sleeve and said, You go, I'm going to bathe first. Mo Lian's eyes brightened slightly. Actually, he would rather stay at home and help Sir Jojo bathe. Prince Mo reluctantly went to Yongren Palace, while Arbor went to the hot spring to take a bath. In the corner of the Eastern Palace's back garden, there was a naturally formed hot spring. The water was clear all year round, and the air was dense with moisture. Arbor took a liking to this place not long after he returned. This treasured place became a place where Sir Jojo frequented. Because the little Crown Princess often needed to bathe here, the Crown Prince had people renovate the hot spring and build it into a bath. Recently, the servants cleaned the hot spring very diligently, afraid that they would neglect the little Crown Princess and incur His Highness's displeasure. Bored to death, Sir Jojo sprawled on the edge of the hot spring, holding a cup of spirit tea and sipping it absent-mindedly. Due to the integration of the Sun-Moon Mystery Realm, Qiuqiu had also advanced. Recently, she was busy stabilizing her realm, so she didn't hear this fellow's chatter. After returning to the capital, she didn't have time to visit her business, so Arbor planned to take a look tomorrow afternoon. When she heard the Emperor say that the holy rice was auctioned for a sky-high price of 180,000 taels, she couldn't help but feel a little curious. Could it be that the business model of valuing things based on their rarity really worked? After soaking for a while, Jojo climbed out of the water. He wiped himself clean and put on a soft shirt. Crown Princess. Kai Chi hurried over and bowed. His Majesty has sent another decree for you to make a trip to Yongren Palace. Xiao Mu creased her brows. This old lady was a little too much. She had nothing to do with her at all, so why did she have to drag her over? After letting Caixio and Caichi do a simple makeup for her, Lady Jojo changed into her red battle clothes and got on the carriage with a cold expression on her little stoic face. The eunuchs and palace maids accompanying her all had tense faces. They felt that the little Crown Princess was in a bad mood. At this moment, the atmosphere in Yongren Palace was a little strange. Everyone was in the open space in front of the Empress Dowager's bedchamber, looking nervously at a eunuch with disheveled hair in the middle. That eunuch was around 30 years old. At this time, he was in a delirious state and was being propped up by 4 or 5 guards. He shook his head and roared like a madman. Empress Dowager Chen's face was a bit pale. She grabbed the arm of an old nanny and looked nervously at that eunuch. The emperor's expression was also very unsightly. He turned to look at the imperial physicians huddled at the side. Have you checked everyone in Yongren Palace? Is there anyone else with the same symptoms? Those imperial physicians were already scared half to death. When they heard this, they hurriedly said, "We've only checked half of the people. There's nothing strange. Then what are we still doing here? Why don't we check the other half? Are we waiting for their symptoms to act up?" Mo Lusheng shouted. Chapter 3240. The Emperor's aura surged, scaring the group of old physicians. They all hurriedly agreed. Mo Lien looked on coldly from the sidelines, watching as they turned around to leave like a bunch of pinched flies. He couldn't help but frown. He said indifferently, "Have someone gather all the palace maids and eunuchs in Yongren Palace and examine them together." If these old imperial physicians, who couldn't even walk properly, were to walk back and forth, they would probably lose half their lives. "The Crown Princess has arrived." Mo Lien's eyes lit up. Just as he was about to walk towards the door, he was caught off guard by his father's glare. Prince Mo turned a blind eye and left the group of people behind. He happily walked to the arched door. Soon, he walked back with a smile on his face, holding his little wife's hand. He muttered to her in a low voice, "Jojo, a eunuch in Yongren Palace has mutated." Arbor blinked and looked curiously at the crazily screaming eunuch. He saw that there were several ropes around his neck, and several people were exerting all their strength to pull him in several directions at the same time. He was like a trapped bird. No matter how hard he flapped his wings, he couldn't break free from the crowd's grip. How did he mutate? This was truly impossible to guard against. It seemed that a portion of Tianyun's power had already infiltrated the capital, but they hadn't made a move for many years. So now, they wanted to make a move step by step. Wang Fu made a trip to Kaidai Pavilion on Changle Avenue today to purchase holy rice. An elderly nanny beside Queen Dowager Chen stealthily peeked at Xiao Mu as she spoke. He became like this after he came back. The young couple turned their heads at the same time and looked at her with cold eyes. The nanny shrank back. She felt a chill at the back of her head and couldn't help but shiver. Empress Dowager Chen reached out and patted the nanny's hand. Her gaze fell indifferently on the little crown princess. "Crown princess, what do you have to say about this?" Ijia heard that the crown princess was called the source of disaster the moment she entered the capital. After that, every time he attacked, he was incomparably ruthless. Now, after making a trip to the Kaidai Pavilion that you're managing, Empress Dowager Chen has become like this. What do you have to say for yourself? Ignoring the young couple's glare, Queen Dowager Chen asked Xiao Mu coldly. Mo Lusheng frowned and said with a cold face, "Empress Dowager, the criticisms of the ignorant people on the streets are not credible. Could it be that just because they said that the little crown princess was the source of the disaster, she really was? Moreover, this rumor was made up by the saintess of the temple." Presently, they already knew that the deity hall was the fangs and claws of Tianyun, and the reason why they would deal with the crown princess was clear as day. The crown princess has repeatedly opposed Tianyun. They are like fire and water. She will never walk together with Tianyun. Empress Dowager, don't worry too much. Empress Dowager Chen turned to look at the emperor and sighed in her heart. It seemed that the rumors were not false. The emperor seemed to be gradually protecting the little crown princess for the sake of the crown prince. The deity hall was willing to become the fangs and claws of Tianyun. Now that it has been destroyed, the Tianyun organization is naturally unwilling. Mo Lusheng said indifferently. Today's move might be a crooked method that Tianyun thought of to deal with the crown princess. Your Majesty, then what about Ijia's Baojia? What about Baojia? Empress Dowager Chen revealed a pained expression. Chapter 3241. She looked at the little crown princess and said, "Tell me, did you harm my Baojia? She's only an 18-year-old girl. She's just a little willful because she's spoiled by her family. Why do you have to make things difficult for her and make it so that she can't even return to Dragon Flame City?" Xiao Mu looked her up and down before tugging at her husband's sleeve. What did she ask me to come here for? Was it because of the corpse puppet or Chen Baojia? If it was the former, she could gather the stewards to ask about it when she returned to Kaidai Pavilion tomorrow. If it was the latter, sorry, she couldn't care less about Chen Baojia. What did Chen Baojia's life have to do with her? What a joke. They weren't on the same team. Could it be that Miss Chen died during her training and she had to blame it on Sir Jojo? Wouldn't that be the biggest joke in the world? Arbor hadn't interacted with Empress Dowager Chen before and didn't know her at all. However, seeing Chen Baojia's usual behavior and thinking of the Chen family's style, she didn't like Empress Dowager Chen. Not to mention that Empress Dowager Chen was like an old fool who couldn't distinguish right from wrong. Arbor couldn't help but frown. Mo Lien lowered her head and held her little hand, comforting her softly. Then, she looked up at Empress Dowager Chen and said, although Chen Baojia went to the Sun-Moon Mystic Realm with us. But to put it bluntly, we're not on the same team and don't know each other well, Prince Mo said coldly. I've already told father about the collapse of the Mystic Realm. As for what happened to Miss Chen after the collapse of the Mystic Realm, we don't know. At that time, Jojo and I were in danger and exhausted. We really didn't have the time to care about Miss Chen's life and death. Please forgive us, Empress Dowager. Empress Dowager Chen was a little annoyed by the tactful rebuff. Chen Baojia was the most talented girl in their family. She was already a level 9 spiritual master at such a young age and had a bright future. But now, however, his whereabouts were unknown and there was no news of him. How could the Chen clan not be anxious? Your Majesty, how should we deal with Fu Wang? His personal eunuch, Hu Dequan, walked forward shakily and carefully glanced at the emperor. The great emperor glared. What else could he do? Naturally, he burned it with fire. Prince Mo said calmly, let's deal with it later. My wife won't take the blame for this. He said coldly, his gaze drifting to the Empress Dowager's face. Tomorrow, we'll go to the Kaidai brothel to investigate this matter. We can't splash dirty water for no reason. Jojo nodded his little head vigorously, expressing his agreement. Empress Dowager Chen's face was a bit ugly. Although the Crown Prince didn't say anything harsh, every word he said was directed at her, making her heart feel suffocated. Empress Dowager Chen looked at the young couple again. She saw that the two of them had their fingers tightly clasped together from beginning to end. Although the two of them looked indifferent and didn't have any big fluctuations, she didn't know why, but she felt that it made people feel uncomfortable. The emperor didn't know how to reprimand the two of them. The Crown Prince was the heir to the throne of the Divine Prefecture. How could he disregard his image and stick to the Crown Princess everywhere? Empress Dowager Chen's eyes sharpened. The Kaidai brothel's matter must be investigated, but it shouldn't be the Crown Prince. Empress Dowager Chen said coldly, Your Majesty, I think this matter should be handed over to the Supreme Court to investigate. Chapter 32-42. Queen Dowager Chen said aloofly, What does Your Majesty think? The Emperor glanced at Queen Dowager Chen before reflexively looking at his son. Seeing that his son's face was unperturbed and didn't seem to have any other expression, the Emperor coughed lightly and was about to speak. Then he heard the little stoic say coldly, It's not impossible to hand it over to the Supreme Court for investigation. But you too also know that it's not an exaggeration to say that my Kaidai Pavilion rakes in gold every day. Investigation is one thing. If my Kaidai Pavilion's business is delayed, the royal court must compensate me. The Emperor's eyelid twitched inexplicably. Whenever he heard the word compensation, he would feel his scalp tingle for no reason. That bastard Giant Pain's compensation had implicated him for no reason, causing him to inexplicably bleed. This time, it had nothing to do with him at all. If he still had to pay this compensation, then wouldn't he be too bloody unlucky? Then let the Crown Prince supervise from the side while the Supreme Court investigates. The emperor didn't feel like he was being cowardly at all. Queen Dowager Chen creased her brows. If the crown prince supervised from the side, would the Supreme Court's people still dare to properly interrogate the Kaidai Pavilion's people? Just as she was about to express her dissatisfaction, she heard the emperor say righteously, "Let's do it this way. Queen Dowager, you must be very tired after being tormented for the majority of the day. Rest early." Mo Lusheng turned to glance at that incessantly howling eunuch. With a move of his palm, he struck out a swift and fierce force that directly penetrated the back of that thing's head. Bam! That eunuch instantly fell to the ground and didn't move at all. Queen Dowager Chen jumped in fright and pursed her lips with an unsightly expression. "If your majesty kills him now, won't there be no witnesses at that time?" Mo Lusheng creased his brows. "This eunuch has already metamorphosed and will gradually lose consciousness completely. There's no use in keeping him. Then didn't he not completely lose his humanity right now?" Queen Dowager Chen was a bit angry. "Guards." Mo Lusheng made a prompt decision. "Drag him out and burn him. Remember to be careful." "Yes." The emperor's personal bodyguards immediately cupped their hands in salute and dragged that eunuch out without another word. Although Empress Dowager Chen was angry, she couldn't stop it. Furthermore, this eunuch had indeed mutated. Leaving him in the Yongren Palace would be a disaster. But even so, she still felt a little uncomfortable when she saw the emperor protecting the crown princess in every way. Their Bao Jia did not return from the arcane realm this time. According to Gui Xuan and the others, the death of the second daughter of the Zhongli family seemed to have something to do with the little crown princess. She doesn't know if Bao Jia's case has anything to do with this vicious little girl. Thinking of this, Empress Dowager Chen's eyes became very sharp. She coldly glanced at Jojo. The latter tilted her head and glared at her. Then, she tugged at her husband's finger. Mo Lian followed behind her and said mildly, "Imperial father, it's getting late. We still have to go to Kaidai Pavilion tomorrow morning to investigate the matter. I'll take my leave then." Empress Dowager Chen couldn't help but say angrily, "Stop right there." This old lady had been paying attention to the young couple the entire time. How could she not see the little crown princess hooking her finger? His Highness the Crown Prince was hooked by his little wife and ran away. What kind of scandal was this? Crown Prince and Crown Princess have returned to the capital for several months. Empress Dowager Chen's voice was very cold. Chapter 32-43. If you want to talk about adapting, after these months, the Crown Princess should have adapted to life in the palace. Empress Dowager Chen coldly looked at the little Crown Princess and said, "But looking at it now, how come you still don't know etiquette? It's clear that you need to be taught by the palace's old nannies and learn the palace etiquette. If you don't go out, you'll lose the face of our royal family and become a joke." When the little Crown Princess heard this, a nameless fire immediately appeared in her heart. She turned her head to look at Empress Dowager Chen with cold eyes and said word for word, "Do you want to die?" The little fellow pulled her little hand out of Prince Mo's hand and walked step by step towards Empress Dowager Chen, who was staring at her. "Old lady, I advise you to mind your own business. It's fine as long as you take care of your own Chen family. If you want to mind this Crown Princess's business, I'll let you know how the word death is written." Empress Dowager Chen was stared at by her bone-chilling eyes and couldn't help shivering. She was so angry that her body trembled and her face turned green. She trembled as she shouted, Your Majesty, look at her, look at her." Threat, this was a naked threat. Empress Dowager Chen never would have thought that this little Crown Princess in front of His Majesty would be so terrifying as to say that she wanted to kill her. She was so angry that she couldn't say a complete sentence. The young Crown Prince Consort smiled faintly at her and clenched her small fists. In this world, strength is revered in the first place. Could it be that old Madame's mind has become muddled after staying in the inner court for too long, and she no longer understands the laws of the 3 provinces? I'll give you a piece of advice. If you anger this crown princess, even the heavens won't be able to save you. After saying this, she sent out a kick that created a deep hole in the stone floor. Empress Dowager Chen was so shocked that she fell back. The old nannies beside her screamed and quickly reached out to support her. You shameless thing. Arbor looked at the old lady coldly, turned around, and left. She wasn't a good-natured little white flower who would repeatedly compromise for the sake of her family's reputation and righteousness. Get lost. If it happened once or twice, she could let it slide in Arbor, but if it happened a third time, she would use her strength to kill it. That was her principle. Don't blame her for being ruthless, heartless, and cold. Mo Lien quickly reached out to pull his little wife over and carefully looked at the little fellow's face. He turned back to Empress Dowager Chen and angrily said, "My wife is very busy, don't bother her with these random things. What about learning the etiquette of the palace? Wasn't that a joke?" His wife would be in seclusion for 70 to 80 days on the fish orchid planet. Who would have the time to learn etiquette from these old women? Your Majesty, look. Take a look. Empress Dowager Chen was so angry that her chest heaved up and down. She almost couldn't finish her sentence. Look at this, is this still the appearance of a crown prince? How is this the appearance of the future mother of the world? If this goes on, the royal family's reputation will be completely ruined by the two of them. When the emperor heard this, his expression also turned ugly. Empress Dowager, what are you saying? The two children are still young and can't be impatient. You have to teach them slowly. Also, how is the crown prince not behaving like a crown prince? The emperor was very dissatisfied that his son was not good enough. Chapter 32-44. This was his and Empress' only son. His little glutinous rice ball had outstanding talent and intelligence since he was young. The moment he was born, he inherited the ancient Mo Lien bloodline that no one in the family had been able to inherit for thousands of years. The emperor believed that if his son claimed to be number 2 in the world, no one could become number 1 in the world. He didn't like hearing the Empress Dowager's words. In view of the fact that the Empress Dowager had been in the palace for a long time and was his father's second empress, she had been a kind old woman all these years. Even though she had her own thoughts and considerations, she didn't play many small tricks. The emperor was more respectful to her for his father's sake. But hearing her talk about his son like this today, his mood immediately soured. If she said that his son didn't look like an heir, then it wouldn't do. His only son would definitely inherit everything he had in the future. Who else could he give the country passed down by the previous emperor to but his little glutinous rice ball? Besides, his son was so smart. In just a few months after he came back, he had most of the people in the court, old and young, so convinced of him. With this ability, how could he not look like an heir? Simply laughable. Seeing the emperor's face suddenly darken, the Empress Dowager naturally felt a bit stifled. That was why people said that dogs had to be raised and sons had to be born. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on the same page no matter what. Looking at the stepson she had watched grow up in front of her, but now he was glaring at her like this, Empress Dowager Chen felt a chill in her heart. Your Majesty. Empress Dowager, no need to say more. Mo Lucian gruffly retorted the Empress Dowager's words. The Crown Princess's cultivation has just risen and needs to stabilize. You shouldn't get involved. Tomorrow, have them follow the people from the Supreme Court and see what's going on at Kaidai Pavilion. Mo Lucian waved his hand. We'll talk about the rest after the investigation. Empress Dowager Chen was so angry she couldn't speak for a while. Seeing the emperor about to leave Yongren Palace, she hurriedly called Amama to support her and walked forward shakily. Your Majesty, there's one more thing. The matter of taking a consort that I mentioned to you last time. Mo Liusheng's face pulled even longer, impatient to talk about this with the Empress Dowager. He waved his hand and said, it's not like Shen doesn't have a son, why take a consort? Empress Dowager Chen leaned back in anger. Why don't you take a look at how many sons the great emperor of the Tsang prefecture and the underworld prefecture has? What about you? She was his only biological child. No wonder he treated her like a treasure. Because you don't have any other candidate for the crown prince. She took a look at the crown prince's character and temper. He wasn't even half as reliable as King Zheng. Every time the topic of concubines was brought up, the great emperor would leave in a hurry. The more Empress Dowager Chen thought about it, the angrier she got. Naturally, she wouldn't let him escape this time. She hurriedly had someone help shivering forward and blocked the emperor's path. She earnestly said, "Your Majesty, you're not young anymore. He only has 2 children, and one of them is just an adopted son. The Empress has been asleep for so many years, and the position of the Empress of the Divine Prefecture has been empty for so many years. I'm just your stepmother. You don't have to listen to me, but you have to consider the feelings of the previous emperors of the Divine Prefecture." The great emperor said with a solemn face, "What objections could the previous emperor have? If he has any complaints, tell him to come and find me." Hu Dequan was speechless. Empress Dowager Chen was furious. She reached out to grab his hand and said anxiously, "Zhu Ci country is close to the barbarian tribe. The terrain is dangerous." Chapter 32-45. They seek the protection of our divine prefecture all year round. This time, they even sent over their country's youngest and most beautiful third princess. Aijia has already met that Princess Yenyun. She is well educated and exceptionally gentle. Why don't your Majesty take her in this time? On one hand, it can let the little king of Zhu Ci kingdom rest assured. On the other hand, it can also help our divine prefecture's imperial family spread its bloodline. Aijia thinks that your Majesty should like. Mo Liusheng's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He raised his hand and waved it forcefully, stopping the Empress Dowager from continuing. No need. That Princess Yenyun, he had never even seen her before. This Empress Dowager was baffling, acting on her own initiative and actually saying that he would like her? Where did her confidence come from, to think that he could take in that small country's princess? Mo Liusheng's face was full of anger as he flicked his sleeves and left. They were all troublesome people. The thought of his Wuxia still lying in that cold place, silent and motionless, made his heart tremble. Yet, there were still so many troublesome people who wanted to stick to his side. Every time he thought of this, he couldn't suppress the rage in his heart. He only wanted to tear all those bitches who intentionally or unintentionally wanted to get close to him to shreds. Whoever came would be unlucky. Lord Jojo waved his hand, drawing open the demonic eye's vision vortex that was circled with spiritual energy. In the vortex of spiritual energy, the last thing that appeared was the great emperor's figure striding out of Yongren Palace. Lord Jojo said with displeasure, "That old lady is really troublesome. She can't torment us, so she went to torment your father. She wants to find you a stepmother." Lord Jojo was full of displeasure when he thought of this. Jojo's Lien's mother was still lying unconscious, and these people were always thinking of finding someone to replace her. How could this be? On the other hand, Mo Lien chuckled soundlessly and said while holding her hand, "My dad isn't that stupid. This proper father wasn't that lustful old great king of Mo Kingdom, who would be charmed by trash like Young-hee. If he wanted to take in concubines, after all these years, the harem would have bloomed everywhere. His younger brothers and sisters were already running around. Even after so many years, his father was still unmoved. It was obvious that he only had his mother in his heart. As long as his heart is firm enough, I have a way to make this old lady stop." Mo Lien lightly said. "Find something for the old lady to do," Mr. Jojo said impatiently. "So that she won't keep staring at other people's family matters. Don't the Chen family have a lot of problems? Give her more." Mo Lien chuckled. He hugged his wife and nodded. "Okay, I'll listen to my wife." Lord Jojo nodded in satisfaction. He reached out and pushed his husband's body. Go take a bath. You stink. Where does he stink? Mo Lien pursed her lips and resentfully went to take a bath. Early the next morning, the young couple followed the great emperor's orders and left the palace. As a result, Mu Qingya, who came to invite the little crown princess home at noon, came back empty-handed again. Even Nanny Chio's expression turned ugly. Greetings to your highnesses the crown prince and the crown princess. Shopkeeper who hurriedly bowed, then cupped his hands at the young man beside him. Zhang Shaoqing. The vice-chancellor of the Supreme Court, Zhang Heng, sized up the shopkeeper and nodded. Did anyone from the palace come to buy holy rice yesterday? Tell me about the situation. Shopkeeper who glanced at the little crown princess. Seeing the latter nod at him, he relaxed. Chapter 32-46. Shopkeeper who organized his thoughts and said methodically, yesterday, there was indeed someone from the palace who came to purchase holy rice. But everyone knows that a few days ago, this last bowl of holy rice was sold for 180,000 taels. Zhang Shaoqing immediately turned around to glance at the young crown princess. He heard that this Kaidai restaurant was the young crown princess's business. In that case, the young crown princess really was a super millionaire who earned 10 million taels a day. The little stoic was suspicious and also glanced at this deputy minister of the Supreme Judiciary. This deputy minister of the Supreme Judiciary was a man of few words. Being able to sit in this position at such a young age indicated that he was very capable. Zhang Shaoqing coughed lightly and said, "Continue." Sir, when this palace servant came to inquire, this humble old man naturally told him that there was no stock. At that time, this person was very angry and repeatedly stated that a certain noble from the palace wanted to try something new. He even threatened this humble old man to not refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. When shopkeeper who said this, he involuntarily laughed bitterly when he recalled yesterday's scene. We naturally didn't dare to deceive a noble from the palace. But we also couldn't conjure something that we didn't have. Shopkeeper who sighed and said, that palace servant messed with us for half a day and ruined several of our business deals in a row. In the end, when he left, he even pointed at our signboard and cursed loudly, saying that there might not be any rice better than our holy rice that was sold in the Eastern Street Market. As a result, he left in a huff. Shopkeeper who said, after that, we didn't know what happened. Zhang Shaoqing nodded and turned to say to Prince Mo, Your Highness the Crown Prince, this humble official wants to make a trip to the Eastern Street Market to see if I can find some clues. Mo Lien nodded indifferently. This matter has nothing to do with Kaidai restaurant. After returning, just write a complete report and submit it to His Majesty. Zhang Shaoqing was startled. He wanted to say that this matter needed to be investigated further, but when he saw Prince Mo's cold gaze, he had an inexplicable feeling that he couldn't continue. Kaidai Pavilion doesn't even have enough time to earn money every day. Do they have the time to make life difficult for a eunuch? Mo Lien calmly swept a glance at Zhang Shaoqing before saying, Huifeng. Huifeng instantly emerged from behind the crown prince. Take some people and follow Zhang Shaoqing. Remember to wear protective armor. Disperse the crowd first, then focus on searching every nook and cranny of the market. Zhang Shaoqing, there must be a big surprise waiting for you. After Mo Lien said this, she held the little stoic's hand and walked upstairs to Kaidai Pavilion. Since he was already here, he would naturally have lunch before leaving. As for Zhang Shaoqing and the others? Since they have work to do, I won't keep them any longer. Huifeng silently shed tears as he watched the crown prince and the little crown princess go upstairs together. The bitterness in his heart bubbled out. Huifeng also wanted to go upstairs to eat. Huifeng didn't want to follow Zhang Heng, this guy, to the Eastern Street Market to search for clues at all. While the two of them sat down in the private room and waited for their food, Sir Jojo involuntarily pursed his lips and said, It's such a big contribution. It's better to let stubborn Chow lead people there. Mo Lien couldn't help but break into laughter. Their positions are different. How can the capital governor meddle in the Supreme Court's affairs? His Jojo was truly adorable. As long as it was someone she took a fancy to, she would always spare no effort to help them. He got off easy. Sir Jojo humphed. Chapter 32-47. Zhang Shaoqing's expressionless face didn't even smile as he walked over. It was as if Sir Jojo owed him 180,000 taels. Prince Mo curled his lips in amusement and reached out to hold one of her little paws. Jojo, actually, your expression is not much better than his ahem, it's not much better. Wasn't it just facial paralysis meeting facial paralysis? Did they not like each other? Sir Jojo rolled his eyes at him. You're the only one who did something superfluous and made Huifeng run over to help him. We should have let stubborn Chao take action. He could have caught the source of the disaster in one go and become famous both inside and outside Dragon Flame City. Prince Mo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How much did this child Jojo admire stubborn Chao from the capital office? Okay. Next time, I'll definitely let stubborn Chao do it. Prince Mo raised his hand to rub the little fellow's head. Then, he turned to look at the group of people who were quickly walking in with plates of food. The waiters from Kaidai Veranda all came in with smiles on their faces. They deftly put down the plates and asked if the two of them needed anything before retreating in unison. Everyone in Kaidai Veranda was beaming with joy. Whenever their little crown princess came over, they would definitely reward her handsomely. When Zhang Enjie came in, he saw the little crown princess picking up some winter bamboo shoots with her chopsticks and placing them on the crown prince's plate. Greetings to your highness the crown prince and crown princess. The little crown princess looked up and sized him up. I saw the new menu you designed just now. It's not bad. Not only was the price tag very clear on the menu, but every dish was also painted with color, aroma, and taste. As long as a customer saw it, no one could resist the temptation of such delicious food. Thank you for your praise, Crown Princess. Zhang Enjie's emotions were strangely complicated. He couldn't tell what he was feeling. He seemed to be a little proud and satisfied. Strangely, why did he feel like he was floating after being praised by the little crown princess? While they were talking, they heard the sound of footsteps coming from outside the room. When a group of people passed by the door of their box, they inadvertently glanced inside. Suddenly, a female voice called out, "Big sister, it's her? She's back? Didn't you say that she might have died in the secret realm?" Mu Rochuan's face was slightly pale. She stared at Arbor in front of her, as if she was unwilling and in disbelief. That's right, shouldn't she have died in that secret realm? Looking at the situation now, she had returned in one piece. Mu Rochuan stared at the Arbor in front of her as if she was possessed. Her mind was in a mess as she exclaimed, You're not dead? You didn't die." When Mo Lien heard this, a trace of displeasure arose in her heart. She coldly glared at him. "Throw him out." Tong's figure suddenly appeared in front of Mu Rochuan and reached out to grab her neck without saying a word. No sooner said than done, a trace of anger flashed across Mu Rochuan's pale face. Her entire body tensed up in an instant as she raised her fist and punched at Tong's palm. Bang! After a muffled sound, Tong's expression changed slightly and he retreated a few steps. Prince Mo suddenly got up and floated behind him. He pressed one hand against Tong's back and stopped him from continuing to fly backward. With his other hand, he quickly formed a pitch-black lotus seal and threw it straight at Mu Rochuan's face. The latter was shocked and her pupils shrank. Chapter 32-48. Bang! Mu Rochuan screamed as she fell. If it weren't for Prince Mo showing mercy, Mu Rochuan would have been sent flying. Of course, Mo Lien wasn't showing mercy to Mu Rochuan. It was mainly because she didn't want to destroy Kaidai Pavilion's entrance for no reason. As a result, it still caused quite a commotion. Everyone couldn't help but run over. Peak level 15 Great Spiritualist. Looking at Mu Rochuan, who had fallen into the corner and couldn't get up, Mo Lian's expression changed unpredictably. She couldn't be clearer about Tong's strength. Currently, he had reached level 14 Great Spiritualist. But he couldn't take Mu Rochuan's punch? What did that mean? It meant that Mu Rochuan's realm was above Tong's. Arbor also walked to the door. Her gaze carried traces of suspicion as she sized up Mu Rochuan. "What did you do?" she asked coldly. It was impossible for a person's strength to instantly increase by 5 levels in a short month. Previously, Mu Rochuan was only a level 10 Great Spiritualist. After coming out of the secret realm, she advanced to level 15 Great Spiritualist. How was that possible? One had to know that Lord Jojo had absorbed the spiritual power of the entire Sun-Moon secret realm. But that was only enough to jump 3 levels and enter the threshold of level 13 Great Spiritualist. Even so, she was still paranoid that her realm might be unstable. During this time, she had been cultivating to stabilize her strength. And Mu Rochuan's advancement speed was actually faster than her, who had absorbed an entire secret realm's spiritual power. Wasn't this ridiculous and funny? This couldn't be called a fortuitous encounter. There had to be some problem. Even secret techniques weren't as exaggerated as Mu Rochuan's. She carefully sized up this woman's complexion. She discovered that other than her face being a bit weak and pale, her aura was very stable. She naturally couldn't see anything wrong with her eyes. The best method was to take her pulse. It would be best if she used her divine sense to investigate. But with Mu Rochuan's vigilant attitude, this was naturally impossible. She would not let Jojo get close to her. Arbor's eyes turned, and he tilted his small head to glance at Mu Roxian. A meaningful expression hung on the little stoic's face. Mu Roxian, you couldn't have embarked on some crooked path, right? Mu Rochuan's heart trembled, but her expression didn't change in the slightest. She raised her head and coldly glanced at Arbor, her mouth full of sarcasm. What, because my cultivation has increased greatly, you're worried and afraid? Arbor couldn't help but roll his eyes. There's always someone better than me. What's there to be afraid of? As long as you work hard enough, live up to your life, and don't waste time, that's enough. Mu Rochuan's fingers clenched tightly into her palms as she stared fixedly at Xiao Mu. After a long while, she said, emphasizing each word, everyone will be jealous. You're lying. Right now, she was already a peak level 15 Great Spiritual Cultivator. Shouldn't Arbor be like Mu Rochuan and Mu Royun, looking at her with faint jealousy and adoration? What right did he have to tell her so nonchalantly that it was enough as long as she lived up to her life? Pretend. Keep pretending. Mu Rochuan only felt her stomach turn. She propped herself up inch by inch from the corner and coldly looked at Arbor. Every year on grandfather's birthday, the Mu clan competition will be held. On that day, do you dare to accept my challenge? She had a provocative expression. Chapter 32-49. Arbor's gaze was so cold that it seemed like it was going to poke a hole in her face. This gaze caused Mu Rochuan's heart to involuntarily shrink. Then, for some reason, anger surfaced on her face. Why should she be afraid of the gaze of someone whose realm was lower than hers? What a joke! She was already able to completely crush this wretched girl, so why should she be afraid of her? My surname is not Mu. Arbor coldly threw her a few words before turning to head back into the private room. You're being a coward. Mu Rochuan excitedly stared at her back, her eyes about to spit out sparks. Arbor turned around and expressionlessly glanced at her. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. You're not my match. Arbor had already seen through her earlier move. Mu Rochuan's realm had not stabilized at all. Tong was only knocked back by her punch because she was caught off guard. If they were to get serious, it would be hard to tell who would win. Mu Rochuan could not help but laugh out loud. Her gaze swept back and forth across her body as she coldly said, "You don't need to find such an excuse if you're afraid of losing. For Big Brother's sake, I'll give you a piece of advice." Arbor indifferently glanced at her and said, "There are some crooked paths. Once you walk up, you won't be able to come down. You're on your own." With that, the little fellow pulled her husband into the private room and ordered someone to close the door. "Arbor, don't think that you can make me feel afraid just because you're spouting nonsense to me," Mu Rochuan sternly shouted from outside the door. "You just don't dare to fight with me. Why do you have to find all kinds of high-sounding excuses? Big sister, she only knows how to flaunt her powerful connections." Mu Rian went up to support her and softly said, "If we're talking about true ability, she really doesn't have it. Look, she didn't even dare to fight with you before. Didn't she let a guard by her side fight with you?" Mo Lien slightly frowned and was about to flare up in displeasure when Arbor reached out to press her down and casually picked up 2 slices of beef for her. "Eat, ignore them. There was no need to get angry with some idle people. It was not worth it at all, and it would even lower his status." She didn't want to bother Jojo's Lotus with the trivial matters of the Mu family. Mo Lien knew that she didn't want to make things difficult for him. He raised his hand to touch her little head and said, "I don't like them talking about you like that." His Qiao Qiao was not a coward, and she disdained to do such a thing. "Let's eat." Qiao Mu winked at him and said, "Why are you being so long-winded with them? Just get someone to chase them away." As for Mu Rochuan, she had chosen her own path. When the time came, she would have to walk it herself even if she cried. "What are you doing here?" A gentle voice came from outside the door. Qiao Mu creased her brows slightly before concentrating on eating without looking up. Knock, knock, knock. The polite knocking sound was heard again. Sir Jojo frowned and put on a displeased expression. This meal was so annoying. One moment, Mu Rochuan brought a few of her sisters to make a scene, and the next moment, Mu Rochuan's mother came. Sir Jojo naturally recognized the voice outside the door. It was Mu Qingya outside. Yesterday, Mu Qingya had asked to see her outside the palace, but she had dismissed her with one sentence. At that time, Jojo knew that this woman would try to find a way to see her again today. Unexpectedly, she had followed her all the way to Kaidai restaurant. He's really persistent, Jojo thought. Chapter 3250. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on the door again. Mo Lien put down her chopsticks and gestured to Tong with her eyes. Tong immediately opened the door and stepped to the left. "What's the matter?" Mu Qingya stepped forward and curtsied. "Greetings, Crown Prince and Crown Princess." Mu Rochuan's expression immediately turned ugly. She felt that her mother was degrading herself by curtsying to the little Crown Princess every time she saw her. As the eldest madam of the Mu family's first branch and Arbor's stepmother, she didn't need to curtsy to a junior. Moreover, if Arbor really cared about her mother, he would have asked her to dispense with the formalities before her mother curtsied. But now? She had to watch her mother curtsy before glaring at her coldly. Arbor couldn't be bothered to look at Mu Rochuan's angry expression. No matter what she did, Mu Rochuan would always be dissatisfied with her. Since that was the case, why should she care? Mu Qingya looked up and smiled at Prince Mo and Arbor. "Sorry to disturb you too." Sir Jojo looked up at her and said indifferently, "Madam, you must have chased us all the way to Kaidai restaurant. What's the matter?" Mu Qingya smiled and said, "Old Master and Master are very happy to know that the Crown Princess is back. They want to invite the Crown Princess to come home and stay for a few days. Old Master's birthday is just around the corner. Old Madam is also looking forward to meeting the Crown Princess." Mu Qingya said with a smile. Mu Qingya said with a smile, I was thinking that since the two elders in the family are so kind, I made the decision to invite the Crown Princess back. I hope that the Crown Princess and His Highness won't take offense. So she wanted to invite them back to the Mu family to stay. Arbor glanced at Mu Qingya indifferently. Of course we should go back to Old Master's birthday. We're just going back to stay. Arbor directly rejected Mu Qingya. She didn't want to go back to the Mu garden and cause more trouble for herself. Wasn't it good to live a peaceful and happy life with Jojo's Lien in the Eastern Palace? Why was she in such a hurry to return to the Mu family? Crown Princess. Mu Qingya hurriedly said, Old Madam has been talking about you for a long time. Seeing that Old Madam misses her grandson very much, the Crown Princess should go home. Arbor looked Mu Qingya up and down, curled his lips and said, Don't you think I'm disgusting? Mu Qingya was stunned. She quickly shook her head and said, Crown Princess, what are you talking about? You are our Mu family's young lady, how could I? Arbor waved his hand and took a deep look at Mu Qingya. To be honest, from the day she returned to the first madam of the Mu family's eldest branch, she had never seen through this person's true thoughts. Logically speaking, as the second wife, she would more or less feel some disgust towards her ex, and she wouldn't care much about her ex's children. However, she still couldn't see through Mu Qingya. She didn't seem to dislike her and even protected her in every way. Why was this? Mother, it's fine if she doesn't want to go back. Why do you have to invite her? Mu Rochuan said angrily. Rochuan, shut up. Mu Qingya glanced at her daughter and frowned slightly. You're becoming more and more unruly. You're becoming more and more disrespectful. How have I been teaching you? How dare you rush to the Crown Prince and Crown Princess's door and shout like this? Go back to the temple and carefully copy the family rules 100 times. Don't come out until you're done. Chapter 32:51. Mu Rochuan's eyes widened in shock as she looked at her mother in disbelief. Her heart was filled with grievance, bitterness, and depression. She really couldn't understand why her mother had been so strict with her since she was young. This Qiao Mu had only returned to the Mu family for a little more than a month, yet her mother was already completely devoted to her. On the other hand, she was like a child that had been picked up from the streets. This caused her to be dissatisfied, and a deep hatred to rise in her heart. Her own mother didn't dote on her, but instead doted on her ex's child. Why was this? Mu Rochuan was very indignant and didn't even want to take another look at Arbor. She straightened her back and turned around to leave. Mu Qingya angrily reprimanded her, Rochuan, what's wrong with you? What have I been teaching you? Why don't you even care about etiquette now? Shouldn't you tell His Highness the Crown Prince before you leave? Mu Rochuan turned around hatefully and stomped her feet with tears in her eyes. Mother, I hate you. After he finished speaking, he turned his head and fled like a defeated rooster. Eldest sister. Eldest sister, eldest sister, wait for me. Mu Rian looked back at Arbor and hurriedly chased after Mu Rochuan. Mu Qingya sighed as she looked at Mu Rochuan with disappointment in her eyes. She raised her hand to massage her throbbing temples. She turned and smiled apologetically at Arbor. Crown Princess, please forgive me. Your eldest sister has been spoiled by the family since she was young and didn't know her limits. Arbor had been watching coldly from the sidelines for a while. In the end, he couldn't help but praise Mu Qingya in his heart. This Mu Qingya was much more knowledgeable and intelligent than Mu Rochuan. If Mu Qingya hadn't apologized first, based on Mu Rochuan's attitude, Sir Jojo would have flared up and punished her for insubordination. Now that Mu Qingya had taken the initiative, if she continued to harp on that small matter, it would appear that she wasn't magnanimous enough. Arbor coldly curled his lips and nodded at Mu Qingya. It's indeed time to discipline the young ladies of the Mu family's first branch. If you continue to spoil them like this, they will end up hurting themselves in the end. Not everyone is as good-natured as this crown princess. She said indifferently, if you meet a powerful consort and she doesn't care about anything, she will whip you. What can you do to her? Mu Qingya nodded awkwardly. The crown princess is right. I'm not in the mood to eat anymore after being disturbed by you guys again and again. Arbor threw his chopsticks and stood up. Mo Lien also stood up. She casually pulled out a thin rabbit fur cloak and draped it over Arbor. Her fingers moved, loosely tying a knot for her. He didn't even look at Mu Qingya, who was standing at the door, and said flatly, "Madam, please go back." Mu Qingya bowed slightly and then couldn't help but say, "I hope that your highness and the crown princess will reconsider today's matter. For the sake of the two elders, please take the time to go home." With that, she didn't continue to pester them. She bowed to the two of them again and then turned to walk out holding Nanny Chio's hand. Arbor glanced at her departing figure. It seems that the first branch hasn't been doing well recently. He sneered. How could it be good? Chapter 3252. Ever since the first branch paid that compensation, the days of the Mu family's first branch, from the masters to the servants, had become difficult. In the past, the servants of the first branch would receive a generous reward every 3 to 5 days. In the entire Mu family, the treatment of the first branch's servants was the best. The patriarch and the first madam were very generous. Even the servants of the first branch, when they walked in the Mu residence, they also walked with their heads held high and their footsteps carried the wind. But ever since they collected that compensation and paid it all to the crown princess, the first branch's life began to decline. The first branch's days took a nosedive, and could never return to the past. Yesterday, it was said that the talented and intelligent young master of the second branch had returned home, and all the servants of the second branch were given meat to eat and wine to drink. The reward was also not small, and everyone received 2 to 10 spirit coins. The servants of the first branch were envious to death. Usually, it was only others who envied their first branch, unlike now. The servants of the second and third branches, although they didn't laugh in front of them, they were secretly laughing behind their backs. Mo Lien smiled and took her little wife's hand, pulling her outside. We've already paid out so many spirit coins and supplies, how can we have spare money to pay that rich man? Naturally, our days won't be too good. Humph, Mu Jingfeng definitely can't come up with a good gift for the old master's birthday this time. That's why this person has set his sights on us, wanting to invite us home to support the scene. Prince Mo slightly raised his eyebrows and said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "What gift should we give the old master? We'll talk about it when the time comes." There were still 10 days before the old master's birthday. What was the hurry? Prince Mo smiled and nodded. "And then let's go back to the palace first." The little guy tugged at his sleeve. "Have the people sent to inquire about Jing Minyao returned?" "Don't worry, I don't think they've returned to their clan's land yet. We'll go and ask in 2 days." Arbor nodded. Thinking of the Pangu clan's treasure, she couldn't help but secretly plan to find time to sneak into the Pangu clan's territory. So, how could she have so much time to go back and chat with the Mu family? Before evening, Prince Mo was invited to the Emperor's study to discuss important matters. Not long after, Arbor received news that the Vice Minister of the Supreme Court, Zhang Heng, had made a great contribution. They brought some people to the cellar of a rice shop in the Eastern Street Market and killed 2 mutated undead hags. This incident had spread throughout the entire Dragon Flame City. Everyone's expression changed at the mention of this monster. The Crown Prince began to get busy, having his subordinates explain the scourge of the corpse bug to the entire Jingdo. As soon as the Imperial Court's document was posted on the square, it caused a huge uproar. Fortunately, the Crown Prince had sent people to stand guard before the announcement to explain to the public that the risk of the zombie disaster was still manageable. Ignorance meant that when danger came, you didn't even know what was going on. Since they already knew that Tianyun was about to launch a large-scale operation, they naturally had to spread the news of the dangers so that everyone would be on high alert. Some families with sensitive information had already known about this matter. Now that the imperial court had made a public announcement, they weren't surprised. Some of the ordinary civilians, on the other hand, were in a constant state of panic. But when they thought that the current situation was still within the control of the imperial court, the uneasiness in their hearts calmed down a little. Chapter 32:53. At least for now, there was basically no danger inside or outside Dragon Flame City. Third young Master Fu stood guard in front of the notice board with his men. When he saw the crowd clamoring, he said coldly, "This matter is still under control. The Imperial Court informed everyone first for the sake of your safety. Some important information about zombies will be posted on this notice board in the future. While warning everyone to be vigilant, we will also continue to teach everyone some basic strategies to deal with zombies." Although some people were terrified, they agreed and understood the Imperial Court's actions. Many people said, "Everyone, don't panic. Since the Imperial Court has announced this matter, there will definitely be a series of corresponding preventive measures in the future. At least our city is still safe for now. We have to be more careful when we leave the city in the future." Safe? Didn't we catch 2 mutated zombies in the basement of the rice shop? Haven't we already caught them? Third Fu raised his hand to suppress the crowd's argument and said indifferently, "The Imperial Court has recently recruited a large number of able-bodied men to prepare to build large defensive fortifications in the outer city. Starting from our Dragon Flame City, we will gradually expand and build outwards. As long as our city is as strong as an iron bucket, we can believe that no monster can break it. Mr. Fu is right. I believe the Imperial Court will definitely protect us." Everyone started talking at once. Many people expressed their belief in the Imperial Court's decision. Naturally, a small number of people still felt very terrified and were already thinking of ways to stockpile some rice. At that time, if the world really became turbulent, they might not even be able to eat their fill. At this moment, Third Fu said, "His Highness the Crown Prince has already ordered that the prices of all rice shops and grain shops must remain the same. Once you find that a merchant is taking advantage of the situation to raise prices, you can immediately report it to the capital office. You will be rewarded with a certain amount of silver. The Imperial Court will fine the shops that deliberately raise prices and take a series of targeted measures." When everyone heard this, the panic in their hearts finally subsided. Did this mean that His Highness the Crown Prince had already taken precautions and considered many aspects of many things? Everyone, don't feel afraid, and there's no need to rush to buy things like food and hoard them. Our treasury is abundant and resources are abundant. As long as you are willing to work, you won't starve. Tomorrow at 7 a.m., the Eastern Palace will open the granary to distribute food. Those over 60, as well as the elderly and children under the age of 10, will be able to receive a portion of the relief allowance. The whole city can participate. Everyone cheered. Their hearts, which had just sunk, were slightly encouraged again. When Fu San saw this, he took the opportunity to say, "His Highness means that everyone should be as vigilant as possible. If you find any strange people or strange things around you, you can report them to the capital office. Those who make a report will be rewarded handsomely." "Yes. We'll be careful in the future." "Yes, yes." Everyone, be careful. The Imperial study room was brightly lit. As your Highness can see, the people in the city are not in chaos. The one who spoke was the Right Minister, Gao Baran, who was looking at Prince Mo with appreciation. Before this matter was discussed and publicized, many old officials were against it. He felt that once this matter was made known to the public, it would definitely cause chaos in the world and even cause unrest. But it turned out that His Highness was right. Chapter 32:54. Seeing that Tian Yun was about to make a move, it was a disregard for human life to suppress all the fatal news and not announce it. Only when the people were on their guard could they ensure safety to the greatest extent. The entire Dragon Flame City would be filled with spies from the imperial court. Once they discovered something unknown, the capital office would receive the news immediately. This was the most appropriate method. Minister Zhang, you did well this time. The emperor sat behind the desk and nodded at Heng with a serious expression. Heng's heart was in turmoil. Hearing the emperor's words, he hurriedly cupped his hands and bowed. Reporting to your majesty, this time, if His Highness the Crown Prince had not sent his personal guards and purple forest guards, this matter would not have been resolved so easily. Who would have known that such a terrifying stronghold was hidden in the East Street Market? These few days, the entire city must be under martial law and searched carefully. That eunuch should not be the only one who came into contact with this rice shop. We must not let the situation worsen. Mo Lien said. Chao Jito nodded repeatedly at the side, carefully memorizing everything. When he returned, he would set up defenses and put the entire city on alert. At this moment, Zhang Shaoqing was full of admiration for His Highness the Crown Prince. He was now certain that when KKD Pavilion's shopkeeper who mentioned the East Street Market, the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess might have already come to a conclusion. That was why His Highness had specially sent a team of experts to follow him to search the East Street Market. He still remembered that His Highness had told him that there was a big surprise in front of him. Wasn't this a surprise and a fright at the same time? Zhang Shaoqing exhaled and said to the emperor, Your Majesty, this time in the East Street Market, not only were 2 corpse puppets found in the cellar of the rice shop. There were also several special ability users. Oh. Mo Lusheng raised his handsome eyebrows slightly and asked in a low voice, They were all captured? Heng nodded, that young and steady face of his revealed a rare trace of faint joy. Thanks to the help of His Highness' personal guards, all 4 special ability users were captured. 2 of them were strength-type special ability users, and 1 was defense-type. There was also a speed-type special ability user who almost got away, but fortunately, we had a lot of people outside, so we were able to catch him. Mo Lusheng nodded. What are these special ability users doing in the cellar? Did Tianyun send someone to stay behind? Gao Baran asked. Milord, there is something you don't know. 3 of them are indeed guards, but one of them is a defensive type. When we found him, he was in a cylindrical container. His entire body is soaked in medicinal liquid, as if he is undergoing a transformation. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Gao Baran pondered for a few seconds and said, But His Highness said before that the night-caw birds spread the corpse poison to the outside world on rainy days. The corpse poison is only effective against ordinary people. That is to let a portion of the ordinary people awaken to become people with special abilities, while the others fail to awaken and become zombies. Mo Lien nodded. It is indeed so. Then why is this person who has already awakened a special ability soaking in the medicinal liquid? Could it be that Tianyun still has a kind of medicine that can enhance the ability of special ability users? Mo Lien declined to comment. Tianyun's goal was now clear at a glance. It thinks it's the heavenly Tao. Chapter 3255. Since ordinary people can be turned into superhumans, why can't this group of people be further transformed? Mo Lien said indifferently, Give the superhuman soaked in the medicine barrel to me, Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Hu Dequan jogged in and said anxiously, The Chancellor of the Supreme Court sent a message saying that the defense-type superhuman locked up in the dungeon suddenly spontaneously combusted. In the end, all that was left was a smear of black ash. Nothing was left. Mo Lusheng said coldly, Let's go and take a look. Crown Princess, Matriarch Mu has sent a letter and invites you to admire the flowers in New South Garden tomorrow. When Saishio walked in, the little Crown Princess had just come out of the bath. She was lazily leaning on a chaise lounge, taking some fish food and feeding a tank of nimble little fish. Hearing this, she couldn't help but turn to look at Saishio. Saishio hurriedly stepped forward and presented a red letter with both hands. The little crown princess flipped through it and nodded. Get ready. We'll leave early tomorrow and take a look at Precious Painting Workshop. Crown Prince Consort, what if old madam invites you to live in the Mu family's courtyard? Kai Shio stopped halfway through her words. The little crown princess understood what she meant. If matriarch personally invited her, it would be hard for her to refuse. But if she lived in the Mu family, Jojo's lotus would definitely follow her back. Morning court was inconvenient and she didn't get along with the Mu family's first branch. When the time came, she would have to live in chaos again. She didn't want to wrong Jojo's lotus. We'll talk about it later. Arbor said indifferently. When the time comes, reject matriarch's invitation if you can. If you can't, delay it for a few days. The crown prince was busy until midnight before returning to the eastern palace. When the palace servants saw the crown prince's carriage arrive, they hurriedly moved. The hall was instantly brightly lit. Sir Jojo had already slept for 2 nights while waiting for this fellow to come back. When he opened his eyes to find that he was back, he looked at the time and saw that it was almost midnight. He immediately rolled on the bed unhappily and got up. Your father really doesn't know how to dote on people. What time is it? Mo Lien went to see her as soon as he came back. When he found that she was awake, he smiled and hugged her. I'm so hungry. Mr. Jojo was dissatisfied with the emperor. You're not even giving me supper. Crown Princess, did you call for me? Someone suddenly poked his head in through the window. The little crown princess was speechless. The crown prince, who didn't know how to name things, was speechless. Cough, I didn't call you. The little crown princess said expressionlessly, oh, forget it. Tell the kitchen to stop working and go to sleep. Okay. Xiao Yi shrank his neck and disappeared. Xiao Yi, Situ Yi, Liang Qingqing, and the others had followed Arbor to Dragon Flame City and did not return to the sect. However, the few of them were quite worried. They suspected that the people of their sect would send people to pursue them and question them. It was said that Fire Smelting City and Ice Sealed City had been at odds with each other for hundreds of years. The disciples of the sect would fight for the slightest thing and there would be 300 battles. Every year, Fire Smelting City and Ice Sealed City would have a competition. Now that senior brother Situ and the others had collectively run away, the sect would probably not let them off. However, they had finally gathered together, so how could they bear to part just like that? Besides, the journey to the mystic realm was full of danger. They didn't even have time to talk to Sir Jojo. Of course, they had to come back with her and play with her for a while. Arbor took out the all-purpose food box from his inner world. Chapter 3256. It was already the middle of the night. Arbor brought 2 light side dishes and a bowl of noodles for Mo Lien to eat. Prince Mo, the poor guy, had been tormented the whole night and was already impatient. Actually, he wasn't hungry at all, but he wanted to act cute in front of his little wife and see how worried she would be for him. Jojo, Dad is too annoying. Crown Prince couldn't help but complain. Tomorrow, I have to go to the East Street Market personally to check it out. Arbor raised his brows slightly. What happened to the people we caught? They all spontaneously combusted. Crown Prince pursed his lips, his face full of disdain. When we received the Supreme Court official's message, Dad dragged me over. When we arrived at the dungeon, we happened to see the other 3 superpowered people spontaneously combusting. Not only did they make a mess of the dungeon, but a few of the prisoners almost escaped. Arbor couldn't help but frown. Why spontaneously combusted? Do they have the fire attribute among their superpowers? Arbor asked curiously. Mo Lien shook her head. No. But we haven't been able to find out what happened yet. It must have something to do with drugs. Arbor couldn't help but assert. Crown Prince Mo nodded upon hearing this. I also think so. It's just that when we caught them back then, we had already searched their entire bodies and didn't leave anything behind. Arbor glanced at Prince Mo. What about space? Mo Lien paused. But they are superpowered people and don't have an inner world. I'm not talking about an inner world. Arbor thought for a moment and said, this is also one of the superpowers, a space superpower. One of them might have a space superpower. Mo Lien suddenly understood. So one of them put the spontaneously combusting drug in this space? Heh, I've never seen such a superpower. It's rare, Arbor said. It appears occasionally, but the probability is 1 in 1,000. Mo Lien put down her chopsticks and nodded with a sigh. These guys are really hard to guard against. Prince Mo was in a bad mood after wasting half a day without any results. Arbor saw that he was a little depressed, so he reached out and stroked the back of his hand. Okay, don't be depressed. Go to the market tomorrow and walk around. Who knows, maybe you'll get something. Why do you think they're hiding in the cellar of the rice store and don't come out to harm people? This was also what Arbor found strange. Judging from the size of that small stronghold, it was likely that they had been lurking in the market for a long time. If it weren't for the fact that the palace servant had gone to buy rice and had done something else, he would have been unlucky enough to be scratched. If he hadn't acted up after returning to the palace and attracted everyone's attention, who knew when this small stronghold would have been discovered? Maybe they don't want to appear in front of the public so early. Arbor pondered for a moment and said. This accident might have disrupted Tian Yun's plan. Mo Lien raised her eyebrows slightly. No matter what, the entire Dragon Flame City needs to be investigated. No matter how much manpower and energy it took, they had to carry out a carpet search. They had to remove all the small strongholds that Tian Yun had placed in the city. We haven't gone out shopping since we came back. The Crown Prince held his wife's hand regretfully. Look, we don't have time tomorrow. You're busy tomorrow, and so am I. The little Crown Princess glanced at him and raised her hand to pat his head comfortingly. Chapter 3257. Mo Lien didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw her acting as if she was petting a pet dog. Jojo. He moved closer to her and rubbed against her body. Where are you going tomorrow? Old Madam has invited me to the new South Garden. Arbor felt a headache coming on when she thought of this. She raised her hand and pressed her small forehead. She couldn't help but feel a little more conflicted. She had to respect Old Madam's invitation. Otherwise, she would seem too unreasonable. Moreover, judging from the current situation, Old Master Mu treated her quite well. If she rejected Old Mistress Mu's invitation, wouldn't the Mu family be gossiping about her? They would definitely say that she didn't care about Old Master Mu. Mo Lien pulled her into his embrace with a smile and poked her small nose with his finger. Remember to wear your crimson battle uniform. Don't be afraid. I'll cover for you if you make any trouble. Arbor chuckled and rolled her eyes at him. What about you? Me? I'm going to fight tomorrow too. I'm going to wear a red battle suit too. Mo Lien mumbled. I'm going to wear red, and I'm going to be as pretty as a rotten peach blossom. Mr. Jojo's eyes curved and he tapped his forehead with a finger. Go take a bath. Mo Lien got up with a smile and walked to the bathtub. He turned around and winked at her. Wife, if we make any trouble together, I'll cover for us. How unlucky must your father be to have such a troublemaker like you? Arbor pursed her lips and nodded in agreement. The night passed quietly. The next day, when Mr. Jojo opened his eyes, Prince Mo had already left the East Palace to run some errands. The little girl rolled around on the bed and sat up. She looked expressionlessly at Kai Xiu, who came in with a basin of water and happened to see her rolling around on the bed. There was a hint of a smile on the girl's calm face. Don't think that Sir Jojo couldn't tell. Change clothes. The young Crown Prince Consort hopped off the bed. Kai Xiu quickly helped her put on her shoes. Crown Princess, the floor is cold. It's very hot. The little Crown Princess didn't mind at all. She ran barefoot to the washstand. Kai Xiu hurriedly took the shoes and followed her. Crown Princess, your feet are cold, put on the shoes first. Kai Chi came in with a group of people who were holding clothes and jewelry. She casually ordered, put them on the shelves first. Crown Princess, Enrich Market's first batch of clothing and jewelry has arrived. Kai Chi's small mouth opened as she chirped, it's worthy of being called Enrich Market's clothes. The flowing cloud brocade is not only smooth to the touch, but also very cool to the touch. It's perfect for summer. In another 2 months, the scorching summer would arrive. Mr. Jojo expressionlessly looked at them. For a level 13 Great Spirit Master, whether it was hot or cold, it didn't make any difference after freshening up and changing into a bright red battle suit. Mr. Jojo looked down at his own outfit. Did Enrich Market make a red outer garment for me this time? They made several. Oh. That's good. She only had one set of battle clothes, so it was a bit too monotonous. Did they embroider lotus flowers? Kai Chi's mouth twitched as she tried to suppress the urge to laugh. She repeatedly nodded and said, Enrich Market's clothes were made according to Crown Princess's instructions. They embroidered lotus flowers on the corners of the clothes. The little Crown Princess' mouth slightly curved as she nodded with a stoic face. It's definitely not as good as mine. Chapter 3258. Kai Chi almost burst out in laughter. Oh my, our little Crown Prince Consort, where did you get such great confidence from? The few of them escorted the little Crown Princess out the door. The carriage was already waiting outside. After Arbor boarded the carriage and lowered the curtains, the carriage moved along the red walls and glazed tiles towards the palace gates. As it was still early, Arbor followed the plan and got someone to drive the carriage to Changle Street. Unexpectedly, the carriage was blocked at the intersection of Changle North Street before it could even make a turn. The driver was Aoyi, who had escorted the little Crown Princess out. It had been a long time since he drove the Crown Princess's carriage. He felt a little excited as he drove the carriage today. Seeing that the carriage was blocked, he jumped down from the carriage and ran forward for a while. Not long after, he turned back and said, Crown Princess, the road ahead is completely blocked. Why are all the noble ladies of the imperial capital leaving on the same day? Kai Chi muttered. She recognized the emblems on the carriage. They belonged to the right Prime Minister's family and Assistant Minister Zhou's family. Arbor frowned. What's wrong? Crown Princess, please wait a moment. Kai Chi jumped down from the carriage and ran to the front to ask around. Not long after, the young lady ran back with a strange expression. She glanced at the little Crown Princess and seemed to want to say something. Speak. Arbor couldn't help but urge her. Crown Princess, do you know why they are here? They are here to bid for the beautifying pill at Precious Painting Workshop. Kai Chi looked at the little Crown Princess strangely. It is said that the madam of a wealthy family in the city sent servants to sleep at the entrance of Precious Painting Workshop every day to wait for the Crown Princess to come and stop you. Stay Up Late raised his head and looked at the emblem on the carriage. It was the emblem of the Eastern Palace of the imperial family. It was very eye-catching, and with so many people coming and going, even a blind person would notice it. Sure enough, in less than 3 minutes, quite a few people crowded over and shouted, Has the Crown Prince Consort graced us with her presence? Crown Princess, I'm from Prime Minister Gao's residence. Madame Gao requests an audience with the Crown Princess. Crown Princess, this lowly one is from Imperial Censor Wang's residence. My wife has come to pay her respects to the Crown Princess. Suddenly, the originally congested road became even more crowded. At this moment, the carriage couldn't even turn around and leave, let alone move forward. Kai Chi and Kai Xiu both rolled up the carriage's curtains, and everyone saw the stoic-faced young crown prince consort sitting upright in the carriage. Her red clothes fluttered in the wind, and her face was as cold as snow. Her small, snow-white face appeared exceptionally cold in her red brocade robe, and her gaze was so indifferent that it made people slightly apprehensive. Crown Princess, Crown Princess. This lowly one is a servant of the Lu family. My mistress wishes to have a chat with the Crown Princess. The price of the beautifying pill is easy to negotiate. The Gao family's servant turned around and glared fiercely at the servant. What was this? A woman from a merchant family dared to come up and fight with Prime Minister Gao's wife over the beautifying pill? The little Crown Princess looked at these people expressionlessly. Until the shopkeeper of Precious Painting Workshop shouted excitedly, "Make way, please make way, everyone. Make way, ah. Don't block the road, please make way." The shopkeeper was quite agile, and he squeezed through the crowd with great difficulty and arrived in front of Arbor's carriage. When he saw the little Crown Princess, he couldn't help but cry tears of joy. "Crown Princess, you've finally returned." Chapter 32:59. The shopkeeper had been having a hard time recently. When he went out, he was chased by people asking for the beautifying pill. When he returned home, he was chased to his door and forced to hand over the beautifying pill with a kitchen knife. No matter where he went, he was surrounded by people. From earnest persuasion to neurotic threats, everyone had tried all kinds of methods. But who knew that the shopkeeper's heart was suffering more than anyone else? The little Crown Princess was the one who said that the beautifying pill was limited in supply. When she left him 3 pills. The price of each pill had been raised to 5 million spirit coins, but there were still many noblewomen and noble ladies who rushed over like ducks. These noblewomen couldn't buy the beautifying pill, so they had to settle for the beautifying cream. The beautifying cream was also limited in quantity. Thus, all the other precious jewelry in Zhenhua Workshop were sold out. It was almost to the point of being out of stock. The shopkeeper had been experiencing both pain and happiness recently. When he saw the little Crown Princess, his eyes were brimming with tears as if he had seen his own mother. He cried and rushed over, wishing that he could hug her thigh. "Crown Princess, I beg you. Do you still have the beautifying pill? Release a few more. Otherwise, I really can't continue living like this." Kai Chi, Kai Xiu, Ao Yi, and the others looked at the old shopkeeper with black lines on their heads. Sir Jojo's face was expressionless as he glanced at the old shopkeeper. "Are they all sold out?" "Almost all the unrelated products in Zhenhua Workshop have been sold out." When the shopkeeper said this, he didn't mind the jealousy of the other shops. On the entire Chang'an North Street, the Zhenhua Workshop was not the only shop that sold jewelry and makeup products. But every day, Zhenhua Workshop was crowded with people. The other shops could only look at them with envy. The little Crown Princess nodded. Suddenly, a cry was heard. A plump madam, who was decked out in gold and silver and had a head full of pearls and emeralds, squeezed her way through the crowd. She pounced onto the carriage and wanted to hug the young Crown Prince Consort's thigh. Crown Princess, I beg you, sell me a beautifying pill. I can pay any price." The fat woman's body was very large and her movements were very slow. Naturally, the little Crown Princess could not be caught by her legs. When Lord Jojo saw her rushing towards him, he immediately shrunk his arms and legs and dodged into the carriage. Stay Up Late stepped forward and used his sword to stop the woman's inappropriate actions. He frowned and scolded, "Speak properly. Don't get physical." "Crown Princess." The young woman was from the Lu family. "Where is Princess Kang's eldest sister-in-law?" That plump woman hastily exclaimed, "I beg you, Crown Princess. For the sake of Princess Consort Kong, please sell this humble woman a beautifying pill." The effects of the beautifying pill were too good. This story started when Princess Consort Kong proved that the effects of the beautifying pill were extraordinarily good, and Imperial Censor Zhang's wife gritted her teeth and spent 1,000,000 spirit coins to buy a beautifying pill. There was no need for the next day. She took the pill on the spot and the beautifying effect gradually appeared. Madame Li, who was with her, regretted it so much that her intestines turned green. Even if the beautifying pill was restored to its original price of 2,000,000 spirit coins the next day, Madame Li still hurriedly bought it. These two madams, together with Princess Kang's trio, became the brand of Zhenhua Workshop's beautifying pill. Who else could match the effects of Zhenhua Workshop's beautifying pill? Not only did it beautify one's face, but it also reduced one's weight. One would look 10 years younger after taking it, and one could see their skin becoming younger every day. Thus, the shopkeepers sold the remaining 2 beautifying pills at the sky-high price of 4,000,000 and 5,000,000 spirit coins respectively. Even then, the supply could not meet the demand. Every day, people would block the door and force them to buy. Chapter 3260. Madame He of the Lu family, who was dressed in gold and silver, used her fat body to try to push away Aoyi, who was blocking her way. She mumbled, "Hey, young man, please make way. Don't block the way. Make way, make way, make way. Make way my ass." Aoyi narrowed his eyes and stood straight in front of the madam. He said impatiently, "Who dares to make a ruckus in front of the crown princess? How rude." Xiao Qiao expressionlessly looked at the surging tide of people outside the carriage. Her pair of clear and cold eyes, from time to time, wandered around the faces of several people. Weren't they a little too excited? It was as if they had been injected with chicken blood. What happened to your dignity and manners as upper-class ladies? Me? I'm Princess Kang's sister-in-law. That nay, he repeatedly used her fat to push against the sword in front of her and shouted, "Crown Prince Consort, we're relatives. No matter what, you have to sell it to me first, Crown Prince Consort." Noisy. The young Crown Princess looked impatiently at the fat madam. She then got out of the carriage. Aoyi, Kai Xiu, and Kai Chi quickly blocked the crowd coming from the left and right. They shouted, "Don't push. Everyone, back off." The young Crown Princess looked expressionlessly at the crowd that kept coming up and being pushed away by Aoyi, Kai Xiu, and Kai Chi. She said coldly, "If you continue to push, you will all be blacklisted." A upper-class lady quickly called out to her servant, "Wang Kai, stop pushing. Come back, come back." They had heard of the blacklist before. It was said that the young Crown Princess was a willful and reckless person. All the businesses under her had a blacklist. It was said that there was even a portrait. As long as you were on the blacklist, you were not allowed to enter any of the shops under the Crown Princess name. Even if you had money, you would not be able to buy anything from the Crown Princess shop. She was just that willful. Xiao Mu walked towards the entrance of Precious Painting Workshop. As she walked past the crowd, everyone subconsciously retreated to the sides, leaving a wide path for her to pass through. For some reason, the young Crown Prince Consort looked harmless despite her young age. However, these people couldn't help but shiver from the bottom of their hearts. He always felt that the little Crown Princess was not to be trifled with. If he made her unhappy, who knew what would happen? The shopkeeper welcomed the little Crown Princess in with a smile. He took out the account book and happily talked about the profits for the past month. His old face was smiling like a chrysanthemum. "Crown Princess, you didn't see it. The rush to buy goods is almost like the rush to buy goods for the new year. Crown Princess, the reputation of our Precious Painting Workshop's beautifying pill has been completely established. As long as we replenish the stock, the beautifying pills will probably sell like crazy this month." The little Crown Princess shook her head. "It's already the 3rd of this month. I'm not selling it. Starting from next month, 2 beautifying pills will be sold on the 1st of every month. The highest bidder wins. If there are any special circumstances, we'll talk about it then." The shopkeeper's old eyes lit up as if a series of little stars were about to float out. "Oh, my dear Crown Princess! How could such a young girl have such a good business mind?" In this way, their precious painting workshop would auction 2 beautifying pills on the first day of every month. Regardless of whether they did other business or not, these beautifying pills would be enough to earn a lot of money. In addition, we will sell 10 boxes of beautifying ointment every month. The starting price will not be lower than 500,000 spirit coins. Chapter 3261. The young Crown Princess pondered for a moment before saying, "Wait until I make a new beautifying product. We'll talk about it then." In the future, she might even be able to pair it with the longevity pill and sell it together with the beautifying pill. At that time, the effects would definitely be very good. The shopkeeper nodded repeatedly and cheerfully recorded everything the young Crown Princess said in a small notebook so that he could check it from time to time in the future. The expressionless young Crown Princess gazed indifferently at this old shopkeeper, but she couldn't suppress the collapse in her heart. Was this fellow going to record every word she said in a book and worship it as if it was an imperial edict? There was a hustle and bustle outside the door. None of the upper-class ladies waiting outside left. They were probably waiting for the latest news from Precious Painting Workshop. The shopkeeper closed his small notebook and said with a beaming face, "Crown Princess, this subordinate will post a notice to inform them now." The little stoic indifferently hummed in agreement and glanced at the shopkeeper, who swiftly dashed out the door to attend to the matter. The people outside didn't have to wait too long. In less than 5 minutes, Precious Painting Workshop's latest notice was posted. When everyone saw the notice and found out that the young Crown Princess wasn't planning to sell the beautifying pill today, how could they be willing to leave the matter at that? That Madame Lu was the first to shout, herding a group of servants to break down the door and enter. "I want to see the Crown Princess, I want to see the Crown Princess," Madame Lu shouted harshly. After being blocked at the door, her face that resembled a white steamed bun instantly became somewhat disorderly and contorted. "I don't care, I must see the Crown Princess." What kind of joke was this? She had waited for almost half a month for that beautifying pill, but now they actually said they weren't going to sell it this month and had to wait until the 1st of next month? This was simply a bolt from the blue. How could it not make her stomp her feet and howl in indignation? Xiao Mu sipped her tea while sitting inside Precious Painting Workshop. Her expression was a bit nonchalant. The ruckus outside was really too much. A single beautifying pill could make this group of women chase after it to this extent. It could be seen that her business acumen was quite good. But then again, which girl didn't pay attention to her appearance? With Princess Consort Kong, Fernjiang, and the other living signboards, how could people not be envious and their hearts beat faster? They scrambled like a flock of ducks to buy her beautifying pills. The little Crown Princess calmly took a sip of tea. When she saw the shopkeeper running back with a smug look on his face, she said calmly, "I've been too busy recently. Everyone in the shop has been working hard. Double the monthly salary." The shopkeeper's eyes lit up when he heard this, and the shop assistants were even more jubilant. Everyone hurried forward to thank him for the reward. The little Crown Princess jumped off the stool and walked out. "Let's go to New South Garden." "Take care, Crown Prince Consort." The shopkeeper led a group of workers to escort her to the door, their faces wreathed in smiles. As soon as she saw Madame Lu, she saw her slightly misshapen round face squeezed through the open window. Madame Lu's expression was a bit sinister as she roared at her, "Crown Princess, Crown Princess." The little Crown Princess's eyes twitched for no reason. She maintained an expressionless face and continued to walk out the door. Other than this Madame Lu, who was more anxious than the rest, although the other madams of the officials were also anxious that they wouldn't be able to buy the beautifying pill, at least they didn't go as far as Madame Lu, completely exposing their ugly selves in front of others. Chapter 3262. The young crown princess indifferently swept a glance over Madame Luha, then walked out of the crowd and boarded the carriage again. Madame Lu wanted to continue making a ruckus, but Aoyi impolitely pushed her aside. Try making a ruckus again. Clang. The snow-white longsword appeared in front of Madame Lu for a moment. Madame Luha was a coward. She immediately retreated several steps in fright and didn't dare to make another sound. When the young crown princess carriage left, the shopkeeper hurriedly tried to smooth things over. He smiled apologetically at the madams and young misses. It's not like our humble store doesn't sell beautifying pills. It's just that the beautifying pills craftsmanship is rather complicated and wondrous. The crown princess worked hard to obtain one, so she can only make 2 a month at most. Naturally, we can't sell them every day. When everyone heard this, realization dawned on them. Most of them expressed understanding, but they didn't know that the shopkeeper, this sly old fox, was just casually making things up. Although the old shopkeeper didn't know if the young crown princess was making the beautifying pills as difficult as he said, he knew that he had some understanding. But from his understanding, the young crown prince consort seemed to have quite a number of these beautifying pills ready-made and sell them slowly. There was no rush. Prepare the carriage. Madame Lu shouted in exasperation. Go to Prince Kang's estate. Hurry. Madame Lu sternly yelled at a group of servants. The carriage driver was so frightened that his hand trembled, and he hurriedly lashed out with his whip. The crowd was already squeezed together, so when she recklessly barged through the crowd, many of the upper-class madams couldn't help but cry out in alarm. The 2 servants dodged left and right, almost getting hit by the carriage. Seeing the Lu family's carriage rush out of the crowd and leave, the 2 servants, who managed to avoid a calamity, couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Madame Lu directly ordered the carriage to arrive at Prince Kang's estate, wanting to barge in without a care. The gatekeeper naturally recognized this barbaric madam. When he saw her, his expression immediately became very unsightly. This madam did not care whether the other party was going to pass on the message or not. She directly got off the carriage and quickly rushed in. The bodyguard guarding the door stopped her, and she even raised her hand to slap him in the face. Then, she quickly walked inside, crying and shouting, "Lan Yun, your sister-in-law won't be able to live this time." Lan Yun. Princess Kong was chatting happily with Imperial Censor Zhang's wife and Imperial Censor Li's wife in the side hall. When she heard this commotion, the veins on her forehead bulged. Sure enough, that uneducated Madame Luha didn't care if there were guests in other people's homes and rashly barged in. She rolled to Princess Consort Kang's side and wailed, "Lan Yun, help your sister-in-law. Help me ask the little crown princess for a beautifying pill." Imperial Censor Zhang's wife and Imperial Censor Li's wife both became embarrassed and exchanged glances. They didn't know whether they should leave immediately or continue to treat Madame Luha as heir. Madame Luha wept and wiped her eyes as she cried out, "You didn't see the little crown princess's stoic face. She's so cold even to her relatives at home. She doesn't give you any face at all, treating your sister-in-law like a radish as a vegetable." Princess Kang's expression instantly chilled, and she bluntly shouted, "What kind of relative are you to the crown princess?" This Madame Luha was usually extremely short-sighted at home and liked to take advantage of people everywhere. Now, she actually ran to the little crown princess to embarrass her. Chapter 3263. Shameless to the extreme. Seeing Princess Kong lose her temper, Luha was startled and couldn't help but shrink her neck. Naturally, she was somewhat afraid of her sister-in-law. Her sister-in-law had been able to hold the position of Princess Kong for decades. Needless to say, she was definitely the most accomplished person in the Lu family in several generations. For a merchant family like the Lu family to be able to raise such a young lady, wasn't there smoke coming from their ancestors? Usually, they relied on this Princess Consort Kong, so the Lu family's days were very good. In just a few decades, the Lu family had risen from a merchant family to a first-class family in Dragon Flame City. Naturally, this Princess Kang's contributions couldn't go unnoticed. Lu He didn't dare to offend her and could only smile apologetically. Sister-in-law doesn't know how to speak. Lan Yun, don't be angry. Sister-in-law, for the past few days, I've been lining up in front of the precious painting workshop early in the morning just to buy a beautifying pill. I didn't expect to not only fail to buy the pill, but also get angry. Sister-in-law, I misspoke just now. Lu He was thick-skinned. It didn't take long for her to get used to Princess Kang's cold face. She chuckled and tried to find something to say. Lan Yun, I don't ask for much. It's not like our Lu family can't afford it. Lu He gestured at her bloated figure and said with a distressed expression, I just want to improve my figure. On the side, Censor Zhang's wife pursed her lips and didn't laugh out loud with good manners. She only used the excuse of drinking tea to cover the smile at the corner of her mouth. Lan Yun was speechless. She glanced at her sister-in-law and sighed. Why are you in such a hurry? You've been like this for decades, and my eldest brother has never despised you. Isn't your position as the mistress of the household very stable after so many years? My eldest brother is already a few decades old. As long as you're not muddle-headed and act like you're the mistress of the household, would he divorce you? Lu He couldn't help but ridicule inwardly. Of course you'd say that. The old prince is in a high position and has been loyal to you for so many years. Even if you haven't given birth to a child in these decades, the old prince has never married a concubine to warm the house. One can imagine how comfortable your life is. Your big brother isn't that kind of person. There are so many beautiful wives and concubines in the Lu family. It's hard to guarantee that your eldest brother won't be confused for a moment and be bewitched by a vixen, causing her to lose her position in the Lu He family. What's more, you've become so slim and young. Of course, the old prince will love you so much that he can't part with you. Of course, you're not in a hurry. Lu He sure complained in her heart, but she didn't dare to show it on her face. She only sobbed and said, Younger sister-in-law, take pity on sister-in-law. If his sister-in-law continued to gain weight, she would become extremely fat. Sob, sob, sob. Since you have a good relationship with the little crown princess, why don't you ask for a beautifying pill for me? Sister-in-law can even pay you double. Lan Yun was annoyed. With a cold face, she said, You go back first. I'll go and ask about the situation first. Sister-in-law can only beg you. Lu He wiped her tears and looked at her pitifully. Lan Yun was both annoyed and amused. He was already a few decades old, but he was still as emotional as a child. When she thought about her sister-in-law's current situation, she couldn't help but sympathize with her. After all, she had known her sister-in-law for several decades. No matter how unbearable she was, she still had some true feelings. Lan Yun nodded and said indifferently, This consort understands. You go back first. Lu He couldn't help but be overjoyed. Chapter 3264. She understood her sister-in-law's character the best. She looked like a hard-hearted person, but her heart was actually very soft. If she nodded, it meant that there was a chance. Lu He happily went out and bumped into Lu Ran, who had just returned from shopping. Lu He hurriedly greeted her with a smile and called out, Ran. Lu Ran merely glanced at her, then turned and left. The smile on Lu He's face instantly froze. Looking at her daughter's departing figure, she felt somewhat uncomfortable. In the past, when Lu Ran was still in the Lu family, she was raised by the matriarch. At that time, she was closer to the matriarch than to her mother. She did not expect that ever since she was sent to Prince Kang's residence, her daughter's relationship with her became more and more distant. In Arbor, naturally, they did not know that Lu Hashir had gone to Prince Kang's residence to cause such a ruckus. The little fellow sat in the carriage, sleepy all the way. After the carriage left Changal Avenue, it headed straight for New South Garden. The spirit stallion's steps were very fast, and it did not take long for it to reach the southern part of the city. New South Garden was on the adjacent street of Hua Chi Street. The carriage passed through an arch bridge, and in less than half an incense's time, it arrived at the entrance of a landscape garden. There were already people waiting there. When they saw the Eastern Palace's carriage, they hurriedly went forward to greet it. They respectfully bowed and carefully asked, "Can the Crown Princess carriage stop at the entrance?" "The matriarch and the rest are at the entrance of the garden right now." The young Crown Princess opened her eyes and nodded. Kai Xiu lifted the curtain and said, "Stop here." The servants who came to greet them were just about to move the pedals over when they saw the young Crown Princess had already jumped down from the carriage. She did not need anyone to help her. The servants raised their heads to look. They saw that there was not much expression on her snow-white face, and they could not help but feel a little apprehensive. Actually, for young ladies of noble families like them, no matter how high their cultivation level was, they would pretend to be delicate outside. When they got on or off the carriage, they basically had to show off and let the servants help them. The young Crown Princess was an honest person. She felt that she had not reached the age where she needed people to help her. "What are you waiting for?" Kai Chi had been following the little Crown Princess for a long time, and her movements had also begun to become nimble. Seeing the servants standing there foolishly, she couldn't help but glare at them. "Lead the way." "Ah, yes, yes." The several servants turned around and hurriedly said, "The old lady has come out." When Xiao Mu looked up, she saw a dozen or so upper-class madams and noble ladies, as well as several dozen maidservants, walking over while escorting a benevolent and good-natured old woman. The old woman's hair was white. Other than a few wrinkles at the corners of her eyes, her face was still very smooth. She wasn't tall at all, and her face was pale as if she had just recovered from a serious illness. She stared at Arbor with a faint smile. "Quickly come over and let grandmother take a look. Last time, I heard from your grandfather that you had returned. Who would have thought that I had been ill all this time and was afraid that my illness would pass on to you? With this delay, who would have thought that you would go to the Imperial Academy? I haven't seen you all this time." Mu Qingya supported the old lady and smiled gently. "Old madam, don't be sad. Look, isn't the Crown Princess here?" The old lady's face was filled with undisguised joy. She nodded repeatedly and walked toward Arbor shakily. Chapter 3265. For 865 The heart of a fist. Arbor dared not let a sick old lady tire herself out. She hurriedly walked over and bowed to the old lady according to etiquette. Old Madam happily grabbed her hand and quickly took off a ring from her finger, stuffing it into Xiao Mu's hand. She said joyfully, "Xiao Xiao, this is grandmother's greeting gift to you. Take it. It's not a lot. It's just a little something from grandmother." Jojo felt that the ring was a little hot. She had mercilessly slapped the old lady's son in the face earlier. How could she accept the old lady's gift? Just as she was about to return the ring, the old lady put on a stern face and patted the back of her hand. "This is from grandmother. Just take it. It has nothing to do with your bastard father." Mu Qingya's expression instantly became a little awkward. "Old madam, please sit down first. Why are you calling me old madam?" The old lady patted the back of Arbor's hand unhappily and said, "I'm your biological grandmother. You have to call me grandma. Quick, call me grandma." She was not an old man like Mu Tsang who could not swallow his pride. She did not want her granddaughter to call her old madam. She wanted her granddaughter to call her grandma. Arbor felt a little helpless. After spending a long time with this little girl, he could actually grasp her weakness. If she was gentle and kind to her, she would not be able to harden her heart and keep a straight face. On the contrary, the more he tried to force her, the more stubborn she would be and would not give in at all. Therefore, Arbor really could not put on a cold face in front of this amiable old lady. He could only helplessly call her grandmother. The old lady was overjoyed and corrected him repeatedly. Good grandson. Remember to call me grandma next time. Mu Qingya smiled and said, Old Madam and Miss Jojo really hit it off. This is probably what we call kinship. One look and I feel that they hit it off very well. Old Madam Mu smiled and nodded. Then, she corrected, according to seniority, Jojo should be the second in line. She's the second daughter of the Mu family. Yes. Mu Qingya was stunned for a moment before she hurriedly said with a smile, It's time to rearrange the seniority. When Mu Ro Yen heard this, she was so angry that smoke was about to rise from the top of her head. Previously, when she saw old Madam casually take off a space ring for Arbor, she was so jealous that she was about to go crazy. Now that she heard the old Madam's tone, was Arbor going to squeeze out her identity as the second miss of the Mu family in the future? How could this be? She couldn't help but shriek, Grandmother is really biased. She doesn't usually give us sisters a space ring as a greeting gift. Even big sister has never been treated so well. Mu Ro Xian's face was already very pale. When she heard Mu Ro Yen mention her, her face turned even paler. Mu Qingya frowned and glanced at Mu Ro Yen unhappily. Ro Yen, how can you speak to grandmother like that? Don't be so sarcastic. If you have something to say it properly. Mother, in grandmother's heart, Long Chu Yun is her only daughter-in-law. Arbor is her only direct granddaughter. We all have to stand aside. Mu Ro Yen was so angry that she couldn't help but spit out her thoughts sourly. Mu Qingya shouted, Ro Yen, you're too rude. What nonsense are you spouting? Chapter 3266. Mu Ro Yen was flustered and exasperated. Mother, did I say something wrong? She just couldn't stand it. What right did they have to come so early in the morning and wait here to welcome this country bumpkin? Why did even his grandmother treat this village woman differently? She was also grandmother's biological granddaughter, okay? Why did she have to give way to this village woman who hadn't returned home for more than 10 years? Ro Yen, how can you be so rude to the crown princess? A gloomy reprimand came from behind the crowd. The second branch's Madame Chiu secretly smiled and used a handkerchief to wipe the corners of her mouth. She coldly watched the first branch's group of muddle-headed people making a ruckus in front of old Madame. What did they think that this ruckus would benefit the first branch? Didn't it just cause old Madame to despise them even more? Madame Chiu exchanged a glance with her daughter without batting an eyelid. She smiled and looked away. Following the sound of wheels, Shi Huixin, who was sitting in a wheelchair with a very gloomy expression, arrived. Concubine Shi had a green handkerchief tied around her head and combed all her hair inside. Her eyes were like the eyes of a poisonous snake, containing a bit of frightening moist coldness as she stared fixedly at her. Don't forget what kind of price you have to pay to offend the crown princess, Concubine Shi said coldly. I'm your example. I still have to thank the crown princess for not killing me. She saved this lowly concubine's life. It's just that I'm crippled. When Concubine Shi said the last 4 words, she gritted her teeth as if she was chewing on Arbor's flesh. Of course, if it was possible, Concubine Shi would have pounced on her and torn her apart. Sir Jojo glanced at her and said coldly, Men. Old Madame's eyelids twitched slightly, and a bad premonition arose in her heart. Stay Up Late jumped in front of Sir Jojo with a whoosh. He secretly suppressed the twitching corners of his mouth and bowed. This subordinate is here. A mere lowly concubine dares to be sarcastic in front of this crown princess. She's simply bold and presumptuous. Kill her. Everyone was dumbfounded. Shi Huixin's face was slightly distorted. She was also shocked in her heart. Cold sweat involuntarily dripped down her face. Seeing that Aoyi was about to make a move, Chiu, sure of the second branch, pursed her lips and couldn't help but smile and lower her eyes. The first branch really had a wonderful show every day, one after another. It was just a matter of which one was better. You. Mu Ro Yen shrieked. You dare, shut up. Mu Qingya saw that things were going in a strange direction and hurriedly scolded the concubine's daughter, who only knew how to scream. She glared at Shi Huixin and her daughter mercilessly. He clearly knew that the little crown princess was someone who never played by the rules, so why did he have to rush over to find trouble with her? Did they really think that the little crown princess, who had just returned from studying at the royal school, would be kinder than before? This pair of brainless mother and daughter were simply looking for trouble. Mu Qingya took a deep breath and hurriedly reached out to block stay up late. She smiled apologetically at Arbor. Jojo, ever since concubine Shi's legs became inconvenient, her brain has also become muddled. Don't be calculative with her. The little crown princess looked coldly at Shi Huixin. I don't think she's muddled. She just hates this crown princess. Since she doesn't want to live such a good life, then let her die. Chapter 3267. Mu Qingya's pupils constricted as she glanced at old Madam. However, old Madam was looking straight ahead as if she hadn't heard what the crown princess said. She didn't say anything or stop her. Mu Qingya felt a little depressed. Old Madam was clearly showing that she didn't care about anything. With old Madam's status, as long as she said something, the crown princess might give her some face. However, old Madam didn't say anything. Mu Qingya glanced at the pale-faced Shi Huixin and couldn't help but curse in her heart. Now, she knew to be afraid. She didn't have her way before, but now, she had a loose tongue. Aoyi raised his arm in front of Mu Qingya. Madam Mu, please make way. Mu Qingya took a deep breath and hurriedly said, Jojo, your grandfather's birthday is around the corner. It's not good for a bloody disaster to happen. Concubine Shi. Mu Qingya shouted sternly, get over here and apologize to the crown princess. Shi Huixin trembled, unable to suppress her anger. What did I say? Concubine Shi suppressed her surging anger and said with forbearance, this concubine is only grateful to the crown prince consort for not killing me, grateful to the crown prince consort for sparing this concubine's lowly life. How am I speaking without reason? The little crown princess glanced at her coldly and said rudely, I never thought of sparing your life. First, you found someone to impersonate me and tried to ruin my reputation. You made me a rat that everyone despises. Arbor looked at her coldly and said, then, you sent a few servants to disgust His Highness and me. Your actions are still vivid in my mind. Why should I let you off? I wanted to beat you to death that day. You were lucky to have escaped this disaster. How dare you be so arrogant in front of me instead of staying in your rat hole? Do you think that I, the crown princess, can't deal with a lowly servant like you? Aoye's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly cupped his hands and shouted, Crown Princess, please calm down. Caixio. Your servant is here. Give her a piece of white silk, a dagger, and a bottle of poison. Let her choose. When Xiaomu said this coldly, the scene instantly turned silent. Even Madame Naichio's eyelids couldn't resist twitching. She thought that the first madam of the Mu family's first branch could protect that lowly concubine. It turned out that in front of the crown princess, the first madam could only suffer. Kai Xiu walked up with a solemn face and directly threw the 3 items that the crown prince consort had mentioned in front of Shi Huixin. She coldly said, Concubine Shi, the crown prince consort grants you death. Do you want to do it yourself, or do you want me to help you? Shi Huixin's chest trembled, and she couldn't help but let out an ear-piercing scream, How dare you? You dare. You're really lawless. What is the ancestral law in your eyes? I, the crown princess, grant you death as a lowly concubine. I really don't need any laws. Arbor looked at her coldly. She had completely lost her patience with this person. Concubineshire had never been humiliated like this. She was so angry that she sat paralyzed in her wheelchair, trembling uncontrollably. Mu Ro Yen was also about to go crazy. She rushed forward and waved her fist. How dare you treat my mother like this? I'll kill Ah. A strong and agile female servant quickly came out from the old madam's side. Without saying a word, she pulled and twisted the second Mrs. arm and pinned it behind her back with one hand. Mu Ro Yen felt that the other party's strength was so strong that it seemed like she was going to break her arm. It was so painful that cold sweat broke out on her forehead. Chapter 3268. Without another word, Kai Xiu had already kicked up the white silk on the ground and walked over with Kai Chi. The white silk was about to wrap around Concubine-Shire's neck. Concubine-Shire's entire body suddenly erupted with power. Kai Xiu and Kai Chi were only level 8 or level 9 mystic cultivators, so they naturally couldn't withstand this sudden burst of spiritual power. Seeing that this spiritual power was about to land on them, Yi flew forward and punched. The ferocious power collided head-on with the incoming spiritual power. Without any suspense, Concubine-Shire screamed and flew out with her wheelchair. She fell to the ground with a thud and couldn't get up for a long time. Kai Xiu knitted her brows and exchanged glances with Kai Chi. The two quickly walked forward and wrapped the white silk around her neck twice. Seeing those two servant girls expressionlessly tightening their grip on the white silk, Shi Huixin's face instantly turned ashen. Her spiritual power was currently being suppressed by that black-clothed young imperial guard, so she couldn't even use half of it. Could it be that she was going to watch helplessly as she was hanged to death in such a cowardly manner? Arbor coldly glanced at her and said in a seemingly nonchalant manner, still not sending a message to Shantian Prefecture. You're about to die. If you die, you won't have a chance to ask Prefecture Lord Gung for help. Shi Huixin's eyes flickered, but she didn't speak. Seeing Shi Huixin's guilty expression, could it be that she really knew Shantian Prefecture's Prefecture Lord, Gung Pengcheng? Seeing that she didn't seem to be faking it, Arbor couldn't help but frown. Should he just deal with her like this? This woman really did seem to have some small secrets on her. Could it be that the old rival who had been contacting Shantian Prefecture's Prefecture Lord, who had been chasing after Sir Jojo for years, was really this Shi Huixin? But seeing how she had previously accepted Xiao Yingchuan's impersonation and used Xiao Xing, Zhu Xian, and the others to do that, she didn't seem to be that brainy. Could it be that a person's intelligence also had its highs and lows and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't? Arbor only felt that the fog was thick and couldn't help but hesitate. Should I keep her for further investigation? However, Mr. Jojo was a man of his word. Since he had said that he would kill her, there was no way he could go back on his word. Otherwise, where would she put her little face? Jojo was in a dilemma when a warm hand patted the back of his hand. Jojo. The old madam finally spoke. Concubine-Shire is wrong, but Qingya is right about one thing. Your grandfather's birthday is just around the corner. It's not good for our Mu family to see blood. Just take it as giving face to your grandfather and let her off this time. The old madam said kindly. She turned around and glanced at Shi Huixin. Her eyes were slightly stern as she said, "Why aren't you thanking the crown princess for her grace?" A mere servant dared to shout in front of the crown princess. She simply didn't know what she was talking about. When you return, reflect on your mistakes. In the future, if there's nothing important, don't step out of the courtyard. Sir Jojo was originally considering whether he should keep this concubine-Shire for a few more days to find out the whole story from her. In the end, was this concubine-Shire the mastermind behind the order for Shantian Prefecture to chase after her? One had to know that in her previous life, she didn't even know until her death that her tragic fate was actually manipulated by someone. One could imagine how vicious and ruthless the person behind the scenes was and how deeply they had hidden. Was Concubine Sure really the mastermind behind the assassination of Sir Jojo? Chapter 3269. Did she have such a meticulous brain? Judging from the slight reaction in her eyes when she heard the words Manor Head Gung, it was clear that she knew this person. Arbor was perplexed. Thank you, Crown Princess, for your grace. As soon as Caixio and Caichi let go, Shi Huixin hastily coughed several times before lying on the ground and shouting in a slightly hoarse voice. Arbor coldly swept a glance at her. Since the old madam had spoken, she would go along with it and let this woman off for now. She would find a day to have a deep chat with this woman. Mu Qingya sighed in relief and hurriedly said with a smile, "Look at us, we were so focused on talking with the Crown Princess that we're standing at the entrance of the garden. The food and wine are already prepared inside. Crown Princess, please." The old madam also smiled and said, "Come, come, come. The Sea of Flowers in New South Garden is famous for being beautiful. You girls love it the most. Grandma will take you for a stroll." Sir Jojo wanted to laugh. He stole a glance at the old madam and saw that she was in high spirits. It was obvious that he was more interested. "You've just recovered from a serious illness and still need to rest. Although it's spring now, it's still quite cold today. It won't be good if you catch a cold." The old madam pursed her lips and muttered softly, "You're saying the same thing as your grandfather. I've been cooped up at home all year round. It's rare for me to come out to play. Jojo, accompany Grandma for a stroll." Arbor was a bit helpless, but seeing that the old madam was in high spirits, she nodded. The group of people clustered around the old madam. They appeared to be a harmonious and beautiful family, chatting and laughing along the way. However, who knew what the people in each branch were thinking at that moment? Jojo accompanied the old madam all the way. Blooming flowers filled their eyes. New South Garden was indeed a place to admire flowers. No wonder the old madam was in such high spirits. Today, the Mu family had booked the entire New South Garden, so the only people walking in the garden were the Mu family's members. There were no other people strolling around. The group walked around half of the garden. After all, the old lady was old and had just recovered from a long illness. Although he had some foundation in cultivation, he was still a little tired. Arbor then helped her to a nearby gazebo to sit down. Mu Qingya virtuously went out to make arrangements. She asked the servants to deliver tea and water, as well as a clean handkerchief for old madam to clean her hands. The old lady sipped her tea with a relaxed expression. Then, she held Arbor's hand and said, "Jojo, your grandfather's birthday is coming soon. Why don't you move back here tomorrow for a few days? Ever since you came back from the royal school, you haven't come back to stay. Your grandfather really misses you." Arbor tried his best to squeeze out a smile for the old lady, but his little face was still a little tense. The Crown Prince has been quite busy these days. He has to attend court every day. It's not very convenient for him to move back. The old madam looked disappointed, but she still held Arbor's hand and said, "Can't you just come back and stay for a few days? Yulon Court is cleaned every day. You don't have to bring anything with you when you come back. Just bring yourself back." Arbor saw the sincerity in the old madam's eyes and his heart couldn't help but waver. He nodded and said, "Let's delay it for 2 days. I'll go back and tell the Crown Prince." The old madam's face instantly brimmed with a smile. She nodded repeatedly with joy in her eyes. Chapter 3270. Yes, I have to tell you. Grandma will wait for you at home 2 days later, old madam said happily. Arbor had been trying to shirk responsibility for 2 days, but she didn't expect old madam to take it so seriously. She couldn't help but sigh helplessly and nod hesitantly. Old madam was overjoyed. She reached out and pinched her little granddaughter's tender cheeks. You can't lie to your grandma. I'm already a few decades old. I can't be fooled by a little girl like you. Arbor looked at her gloomily. We said we'd come back, so we must. Got it. Xiao Mu could only nod her small head again. Old Madam laughed happily. Mu Qingya hurriedly comforted her with a smile. Old Madam, look at how happy you are. Old Master has instructed us to keep an eye on your emotions. We can't let you be too happy or sad. Tisk, Old Madam pouted angrily and snorted. I'm not a puppet. How can I not laugh? Madame Chiu hadn't been able to get a word in. Seeing this, she hurriedly said with a smile, Isn't that so? Old Madam is full of energy. It must be because she's happy to see the Crown Princess. That's why she's in such good spirits. After what happened just now, Mu Ro Yen had been biting her lip and lagging far behind the crowd with her auntie. When she heard Madame Chiu's shameless flattery, she couldn't help but spit. How shameless. Chiu Shi of the second branch usually looked like a shrewd person, but she didn't expect that she would speak without integrity. Seeing that the old Tai liked the Crown Prince Consort so much, she rushed to flatter the Crown Prince Consort. She was simply shameless. Shi Huixin's face was dark, but her heart was still pounding. Just now, after she had come back from the gates of hell, she suddenly realized something. In the future, she couldn't face the Crown Princess directly. She could only beat around the bush. After all, their statuses were worlds apart. Even if the Crown Princess didn't use her full strength, she could still crush her like an ant just by using her status to suppress her. Thinking of this, Shi Huixin couldn't help but shudder. She secretly scolded herself for acting rashly just now. But how could a normal person have such good self-control? How could they not fly into a rage when they suddenly saw their enemy right in front of them? A group of people sat in the pavilion and surrounded the old lady. They were enjoying tea and snacks happily. Suddenly, they saw a manservant rush over in a hurry. He quickly kowtowed and repeatedly shouted, Old Madam, Madams, it's not good. Madame Chen brought a group of guards and broke in. We couldn't stop dozens of them. The old madam frowned. Which madam of the Chen family is so rude? Since the Mu family had reserved this garden for a day, it meant that during this day, as long as the Mu family did not leave, New South Garden could not be open to outsiders. This was an established rule. Everyone in Long Yen City knew about it. The old madam frowned and was about to stand up to ask when she saw the noisy group of people approaching. The woman in the lead with an ugly expression looked very familiar. The old madam narrowed her eyes and then put on a surprised expression. Isn't this the wife of the Prime Minister? Why did you barge into New South Garden today? Madame Chen immediately spotted Xiao Mu, who was sitting next to old madam, and suddenly dashed over. Chapter 3271. Aoyi, Kai Xiu, and the others' expressions changed. They subconsciously reached out to stop the woman and scolded, Stop. Get out of the way. I want to see the Crown Princess. Madame Chen barged her way to the front of everyone and gritted her teeth as she looked at Xiao Mu. Suddenly, she knelt before Xiao Mu with a plop and pleaded in a tearful voice, Crown Prince Consort, please tell me my daughter's whereabouts on account of this subject's motherly love. I only have one daughter, Baojia. It is inevitable that I spoil her. If she has offended the Crown Prince Consort in any way, you can vent your anger on this subject wife. I hope that you can spare my daughter. Arbor looked at the woman in front of her with cold eyes. This person's words were really sophisticated. She insisted that she had something to do with Chen Baojia's disappearance. On the surface, she begged for mercy, but in fact, she was reprimanding her. She was clearly saying that she couldn't get along with Chen Baojia, the child who had been spoiled by her family. She, the Crown Princess, was not magnanimous enough. She was really a shrewd woman. If she followed her words, then it would be true that she had something to do with Chen Baojia. In fact, she had no interest in knowing whether Chen Baojia was dead or alive. She really didn't understand why these people liked to bite her and didn't want to let go. They only thought that she had done something to Chen Baojia. What a group of strange people. Was she, Arbor, such a boring person? If she wanted to make a move, she would directly kill her. Doing these sneaky things was not in line with her personality. Arbor sat quietly beside the old madam and stared coldly at Madam Chen. Madam Chen saw that she didn't speak for a long time and subconsciously looked up at her. However, when she met those dark and deep eyes, she couldn't help but shiver. This girl's awe-inspiring aura was really hard to resist. Not to mention her poor daughter Baojia, even she, as the left prime minister, has seen many families of officials in the officialdom. She has already practiced the style of officialdom. However, at this time, she can't help being awed by the momentum of the little girl in front of her. Chen Baojia's life or death has nothing to do with me. The young crown princess's cold words froze Madam Chen's heart. Her body inexplicably trembled, and her eyes narrowed as she looked at her. But Gu Yixuan and Long Min, who came with us, have witnessed the conflict between the crown princess and Baojia. Even Miss Zhongli died in. Does this crown prince consort still need to explain to you what she says or does? Xiao Mu interrupted her coldly, her eyes containing a frigid intent. Chen Baojia was missing and didn't return to Dragon Flame City. Perhaps she died on the mountain behind the Sun Moon Temple, or perhaps she had an accident and was still trapped there. These people didn't investigate anything and didn't care about anything. They only listened and believed that she dealt with Chen Baojia. If she really did it, did they think that Chen Baojia would still be alive? It was simply ridiculous. Arbor's cold gaze slid across Madam Chen's pale face. She said coldly, Madam Chen, you mustered a lot of people today and brought dozens of people here. Do you want to fight with the crown princess or something? Does the crown princess dare to confront the boy from the Gu family and the girl from the Long family face to face? Huh, what right do those two unpresentable things have to confront the crown princess face to face? You really think they are important people? Chapter 3272. Madam Chen's expression changed slightly. She inwardly suppressed her anger and took a deep breath. Crown Prince Consort, you don't understand. When a mother goes crazy, who knows what kind of outrageous things she will do? Are you threatening me? Arbor narrows his eyes coldly. Bang! Madame Mu slams her hand on the stone table and glares at Madam Chen. Madam Chen, although the crown princess has lost her mother, she still has me as her grandmother. As long as I and the old man are here, no one can bully her. Madam Mu, I didn't mean that. Madam Chen softens her tone when she sees the atmosphere getting more and more stiff. Madam Mu stands up slowly. Arbor also stands up and reaches out to support her. Madam Chen, you think too highly of your daughter. What is the status of the crown princess? Does she need to feel sorry for your daughter? I believe in my granddaughter. Since she said it has nothing to do with her, then it has nothing to do with her. Today is the day of the Mu family to visit the garden and enjoy the flowers. I don't want outsiders to be present. Please go back. Madam Chen is so angry that her chest rises and falls slightly. She can't help but say, the crown princess said it has nothing to do with her. Then do you have any evidence? What evidence do you have? Madame Mu interrupts Madam Chen's words with dissatisfaction. Did you see the crown princess kidnap your daughter with your own eyes? Or did you see the crown princess kill your daughter with your own eyes? Where's your material evidence? Where's your witness? Just because Miss Long from the Long family and Gu family's brat made some baseless accusations, this basin of dirty water can be splashed onto the crown prince consort's head? Old Madam sneered. You are too naive. Madame Mu, she killed the girl of the Zhongli family in the secret land. Madame Chen can't help but interrupt Madame Mu's words with a sharp voice. She has been dissatisfied with our Baojia for a long time. At the beginning, Baojia and Jiwei were both assigned to His Highness the Crown Prince. Now one is dead and the other is missing. Are you happy, Crown Princess? Why don't you just admit that you're a jealous woman who wants them dead with all your heart? Shut up. A deep and cold voice came from outside the courtyard. Everyone was slightly startled and turned to look. He saw two figures standing on the cobblestone path leading to the pavilion. Mo Lien was dressed in an ink-colored court robe. He stood tall and straight not far away. His handsome face was covered with a layer of frost. His phoenix eyes were slightly raised, and the coldness was threatening. Left Prime Minister Chen Chaoji stood behind the Crown Prince. He felt waves of cold air coming from all over his body. He was so frightened that he didn't even dare to breathe loudly. In his heart, he was cursing his wife for being brainless. When he received the news that Madame had brought people to New South Garden to cause a ruckus, he had hurried over. Who knew that he would still run into His Highness the Crown Prince and let His Highness hear his wife's rude words? This matter could be big or small. If it was big, it would be disrespecting the Crown Princess. If it was small, it could be said that a mother spoke without thinking in a moment of desperation. It all depended on how the Crown Princess would deal with it. Why have you come? The young Crown Prince Consort blinked at Mo Lien, who was striding over with large strides. Prince Mo reached out and took the little fellow into his arms. He raised a hand and lightly patted her back. If I didn't come over, I would have been kept in the dark. So this is how these people treat you behind my back. Greetings to Your Highness the Crown Prince. Chapter 3273. Every time Madame Chen and Madame Gao see you, do they yell at you without any manners? It's not as exaggerated as you say. Arbor was speechless. What does this have to do with the wife of the Prime Minister? This morning, she had seen Madame Gao at the entrance of Zhenhua workshop. Although Madame Gao was also quite impatient and wanted to buy the beautifying pill, she wasn't like Madame Luha, who stopped her and threw a tantrum and refused to let her go. Madame Gao did not take the blame. She was still very well-mannered. Mo Lien reached out to hold her little chin and carefully looked at her. Seeing that the little fellow's eyes were not red and teary, he sighed in relief. Arbor was baffled and raised her little paw to slap his hand away. What are you doing? The way the two of them interacted with each other naturally made the entire Mu family a little dumbfounded. The little Crown Princess actually slapped His Highness the Crown Prince's hand away without any trace of politeness. Matriarch Mu was the first to recover her wits and hurriedly led people forward to greet them. Mo Lien retracted his hand and reached out to support Matriarch Mu, who was bowing in greeting. He said softly, "Grandmother, no need to be so courteous. Grandson-in-law still wants to greet grandmother." You can't. Matriarch Mu hurriedly pulled him back and exchanged a few pleasantries with a smile. She secretly looked at the Crown Prince and secretly nodded in her heart. Unparalleled in character and appearance, outstanding in style. Her little granddaughter's taste was really superb. Arbor reached out her little hand and secretly tugged at his sleeve. Have you finished inspecting the market? Prince Mo turned back and nodded at her. He smiled and reached out to pull her to his side. Jojo, I missed you. Everyone was stunned and felt a little uncomfortable being stuffed with a mouthful of dog food. What was going on? Did His Highness the Crown Prince usually get along with the little Crown Princess like this? Sir Jojo secretly glanced at grandmother and the others and somewhat embarrassedly reached out to push Prince Mo. Don't push. Prince Mo glared at the little fellow. You promised not to push me again. You promised me. Arbor didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He secretly pinched his waist and whispered, "Everyone's here." Mo Lien grunted, but he did not let go of her waist. He turned to look at Chen Chaoji and shouted angrily, "Chen Chaoji. Chen Chaoji was secretly wiping away the cold sweat on his forehead when he was suddenly called out by the crown prince. He felt a little uncomfortable. He stiffened for a moment, then hurriedly walked forward and bowed stiffly. Old subject is here. You heard what your wife said just now, right? Mo Lien glanced at him coldly. Do you have any thoughts? What thoughts do you have? Chen Chaoji only felt that the cold sweat on his head was becoming denser and denser. Your wife spoke rudely and slandered the crown princess. This prince wants to submit a memorial to His Majesty and strip her of her second-rank title. Do you have any objections? Although this was a question, Chen Chaoji was very clear that this was His Highness the Crown Prince's decision. Do you have any objections? Actually, what he meant was, do you have any objections? This meant Chen Chaoji's face stiffened. He was the prime minister, but his wife was stripped of her second-rank title. In the future, when the official family gatherings were held, his wife would be many ranks lower than the right prime minister's wife. Madame Chen widened her eyes and couldn't help but ask, Your Highness the Crown Prince, when did this subject slander the Crown Princess? Chapter 3274. You just said that the Crown Princess is a jealous woman. Mo Lien coldly looked at Madame Chen in front of him. Originally, with his status, he didn't want to bicker with a shrew, but what kind of words did she say? Who gave her 100,000 iron guts, daring to point at his Jojo and scold him like this? Chen Chaoji hurriedly stepped forward and pinched his wife's lower back, stopping this stupid woman from spitting out the words that were about to come out of her mouth. He said with an embarrassed smile, Your Highness, please calm down. It was this old official, this stupid woman, who spoke indiscreetly. I ask Your Highness to forgive her on account of her longing for her daughter and being a bit delirious. You also said that Chen Baojia and Zhongli Jiwei were the ones who were assigned to this prince? Mo Lien coldly looked at the stupid woman in front of him, his voice like it was fished out from an ice cellar. Who gave you the courage to speak such nonsense? Who admitted it? Those two women have nothing to do with this prince. Does this prince's crown princess need to be jealous of these two ignorant women? Simply ridiculous. Prince Mo indifferently looked at her and said, From beginning to end, this prince only has the crown princess. Who does the crown princess need to be jealous of? Chen Chaoji, your wife slandered this prince's crown princess like this. You must give this prince an explanation. The onlookers suddenly felt strangely stifled. They only felt that this dog food was so fucking full, so uncomfortable. What to do? Can you stop showing off your dog food in front of this group of resentful women? In the Mu family, other than fourth uncle who was widowed and never married, which one of the masters of the first branch, second branch, and fifth branch didn't have a few beautiful concubines by their side? Like the crown prince who clearly stated that he only wanted the crown princess alone, there probably wasn't a second person in the divine continent, right? At this time, they collectively lost their memories, leaving aside the two brothers, the great emperor and Prince Kong, and intuitively felt that His Highness the Crown Prince's situation was very abnormal. On their continent, of course, the strong would become stronger. When one's cultivation rose, would they still have to worry about not having money and beauties throwing themselves at them? Who could point out that a strong person only accompanied by a beauty to pass his days? How was that possible? Was this little crown princess a reincarnated demon? How did she manage to bewitch the future crown prince? Chen Chaoji, what do you plan to do? Prince Mo continued to interrogate. He didn't intend to let Madame Chen off so easily. It was beneath him to deal with Madame Chen. Let Chen Chaoji personally deal with Madame Chen. Anyone who dared to bully his little emperor would definitely not have a good ending. Chen Chaoji smiled bitterly. He realized that he had no way of glossing over the matter today. According to the crown prince, if they didn't give him an explanation today, it was inevitable that the crown prince would hold a grudge against the Chen family because of this stupid woman. Being remembered by the future crown prince was not a good thing. Chen Chaoji hurriedly smiled apologetically and said, Your Highness, don't worry. When this official returns, I will definitely. Are you trying to fool me? Prince Mo looked at him coldly. Forget it, wait for this Highness to report to Imperial Father and let Imperial Father make a decision. Don't. Chen Chaoji jumped in fright and hurriedly stopped him. This shrew spoke without reason, she deserves 20 lashes. He secretly glanced at the Crown Prince's expression and gritted his teeth. 30 lashes. This official will do it right away. I hope your Highness will not be angry. It's not me who will not be angry, it's my little Crown Princess who will not be angry, Prince Mo coldly corrected. Chen Chaoji nodded and hurriedly turned to the Crown Princess. I hope the Crown Princess will not be angry. Chapter 3275. The little Crown Princess only feels that this Chen Chaoji is a bit funny. With his character, he can actually sit in the position of the left Prime Minister. The great Emperor's vision is really bad. The little guy curls his little mouth and looks on coldly as Chen Chaoji orders the servants to hold down Madame Chen and tie her to a tree. Then he personally lashes her 30 times while panting. Not one less, he doesn't dare to be lazy. While waving his arms, he hears Madame Chen's screams and curses. Mo Lian looks at Chen Chaoji and his wife with disdain. She reaches out and takes the little guy's little hand. Jojo, don't be angry anymore. What can she be angry about? Arbor shakes her head, but she can't help but ask in a low voice, where do you think Chen Baojia went? It had been so long, and those who should have returned had already returned, but Chen Baojia still hadn't returned. Could it be that her crow's mouth was right, and she was still sealed in some corner of the back mountain of the Sun Moon Divine Hall, unable to respond to her cries, unable to do anything? Prince Mo snorts, what does it have to do with us? Let's not talk about her. He looks like he doesn't want to talk about it. Jojo secretly finds it funny, but her face is calm. She naturally won't drag him to talk about another woman. Did you find anything in the city square today? Arbor asks in a low voice. She raises her hand and pinches the back of his hand. Are you tired? Very tired. Mo Lian squeezed to her side aggrievedly and muttered quietly, we searched every nook and cranny of the market, wishing nothing more than to dig up every single floor tile. We didn't find anything. Arbor is a little surprised. She originally thought that if they searched the city square again today, they might find some small things. She didn't expect Tianyan's movements to be so fast. In a flash, they've cleaned up and disappeared without a trace. Jojo, your husband has been busy all morning, but I didn't get anything. My heart hurts. Prince Mo held her little hand and said softly, you have to comfort me. Arbor suppressed the smile in his heart and turned to look at him seriously. He nodded his little head vigorously. Yes. Mo Lian's gloomy expression was swept away. She immediately beamed and said, we have nothing to do in the afternoon. Let's go to Dragon Flame City for a walk. Ahem. Matriarch Mu coughed lightly at the right time. She could tell that this crown prince only had eyes for her little granddaughter. He had been staring at her for so long, and he didn't even look away. Mo Lian hurriedly turned her head and smiled at the old madam. Grandma, do you have any instructions for me? Matriarch Mu was overjoyed to hear her calling her grandma. She inexplicably switched sides and sided with her. Your Highness, this old one has discussed with Jojo just now. Matriarch Mu quickly recounted the matter of asking Arbor to come home. Then, she looked at Prince Mo and said, since both of you have nothing to do in the afternoon, pack up a little and move back here for a few days. Mo Lian looked at Arbor inquiringly. Arbor looked at him helplessly. Mo Lian instantly understood his little wife's meaning. He thought for a moment and said, Grandma, it's just that we didn't have a good time staying here last time. He blinked and acted cute. Jojo and I are both kind people. We always get bullied when we go back to the Mu family. It's not impossible for us to go back, but we have to set some rules. Both of you are kind people? Everyone looked at Prince Mo and the Crown Princess as if they had seen a ghost. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.